How's it going? What's up? Hello, Mr. Multi Daniel Grace. What is this music? How do I love and hate it at the same time? What was that? Kevin MacLeod, Thatched Villagers. You don't like Thatched Villagers? Or you love and hate it? What's up? What's up? Hello. Rebecca, what's up? Sputnik, Weeping Dalek. Do we usually start at negative budget? Technically, normally you just can't see it, and then it's positive by the time we get there, because the decrement starts immediately. So the amount that it's subtracting every minute starts instantly. You just normally can't tell. But yeah, so technically yes. But you're stealing words now. I'm always stealing words from other people. Hello, how's it going? I'm going to leave you with some music. I'm not even going to go into BRB. I just realized that I can take more mouth meds. It's been enough time. So I'm going to leave you with a short bit of music, and I will be right back. Reminds me of that divisive Doctor Who episode. I don't know if I know what you're talking about on divisive Doctor Who. Although I watched through Matt Smith, and then I haven't really watched since. So that would probably be why I don't know it / remember it. The name of the episode is Midnight. Oh, is that the planet called Midnight? I kind of remember that. Yeah, I sort of remember that. Hello. Hello, everybody. Now I'm intrigued. Do you say he was going to take more mouth music? Mouth meds. Mouth meds. Diamond Planet in a Train. That's right. I remember Midnight now. Yeah. It's definitely a weird one. Yeah. No. I went to go take more mouth meds. I can take more valcyclovir. More ibuprofen. I think I'm cautiously optimistic that we might be able to do the whole thing. Very optimistic that we'll be able to do at least half. So I am optimistic on that. And I will actually really quickly. So I normally do, I like to start these off with the takeaways, the comment highlights nowadays, but I do want to do a bit of housekeeping because it's very directly, a lot of the housekeeping is not directly related to CR, but this one is. I am, I'm always trying to think of how to make the streams better, what I want the stream to be, all of that, and something that I know is on so many people's minds always, all the time, especially if you've been here for longer, is spoilers. And I've been all over the place on how to handle spoilers, how I want them to be handled. And I had the article, and I still like the article, but it's hard to remember. It's hard for me to remember to pin it. And there's some difficulty there. And when I've been thinking about it recently, I think I don't want to say it's a losing battle, but it is a battle that I want to fight. So I know that people in chat like to help, like to say, hey, that's a spoiler. whatever. But I think from now on, I would prefer if chat just generally. We've been discussing how much to tell you in spoilers chat. This might be informative. Okay, yeah. Generally, if I and this is less about what actually constitutes a spoiler and more about if someone posts what may be a spoiler in chat, I will handle it. That's basically the most, I guess, recent change in my mindset, because I was originally down to like kind of like let the community kind of monitor and it's itself to an extent, and I still want that. Like, I'm not gonna like get involved in spoilers chat, but I also don't want. I've noticed occasionally, people post things that might be even like close to a spoiler, and they get like called out in chat. And if anyone's going to call them out, I'll do it. For Twitch, you can have mods look out for it. Well, that's kind of what is happening currently, Vision. But sometimes the mods aren't, totally aware of what I consider a spoiler. And it's also weird for like other community members to be like policing each other in a community that's so small. So I think at least for now, I'll just handle it. I'm still down for like, hold the line, what have you. But especially when it comes to like specific person posts specific thing that might be a spoiler. If I consider it to be a spoiler, I will directly acknowledge it. And I might not even realize that it's a spoiler. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of just draws more attention to it at this point. I've often thought if we jump in and say spoiler, then it can make it more obvious. Yeah, honestly. And other times, if it's not something that, the person is aware of, I'll educate them. On like what I consider a spoiler. So that was that. And we've been having the other kind of piece of like thinking about how I handle the stream and how I handle discussion and how I, handle chat is when we've recently, I think within the past like, 10, 20 episodes, basically since the Chroma Conclave arc started, have been talking a lot more about like future CR bias and like just like biases in general that can affect, our views and our opinions. And it's like, like a really oh, thank you, Mr. Multi. I appreciate it. We kind of talked about it really early on with like the Scanlan stuff of like, okay, even though, Scanlan gets better, that doesn't modify how his behavior is right now, and that goes vice versa. And I've been thinking a lot about it because it's come up in multiple different situations with Vorugal, recently with like the actual behavior of Vox Machina, with certain like character plots. I think we talked about it with Keyleth. And I've been thinking about like, what does future CR knowledge, like how does that impact current discussion, and how do I even like want to handle that? And I think that there's something that I heard a long time ago in regards to programming bias, which is a very very separate, but it is that bias needs to be acknowledged, bias needs to be accounted for to some degree, but it's not an argument in and of itself. It is a force that acts upon whatever it's involved in, but it is not a thing in and of itself. And I say that for myself and for the community when we're talking about, our impressions of things. Yes, the bias of like future knowledge versus no future knowledge is something that absolutely needs to be like kept in mind and contended with, but it's also not an actual explicit argument. So if I disagree with a chatter or a chatter disagrees with me, it can't just be well, this gets better, so Mega's wrong. And from my perspective, I can't say, oh, well, you know what's gonna happen, so your opinion of what's currently happening is wrong, right? Neither of those are valid arguments. So I need to kind of keep that in mind, especially if we start getting circular, to acknowledge it. Because I often get in the mode where I feel like I'm arguing against the future, and that is tough for me, admittedly. But I need to be better about like really thinking through when that's happening and how we can maybe dig more down into how are these things currently being demonstrated, so that we can really figure out, okay, is that bias really playing into it, or is it not? And is it totally separate? Because sometimes I get way too circular, and I know that can be very annoying for the audience of like, we've been talking about the same thing for like 20 minutes, and we're just going round and round. I fully understand that that's annoying, and that's something that I'm contending with as essentially a debate moderator. I don't know what to call it. A discussion moderator is how to cut through that chaff. So that's something that I just wanted to vocalize as something that I'm trying to work on as well, in case it comes up, because it would be weird if I didn't vocalize this and then was like talking about it during the episode. And I have a feeling that those sorts of conversations will probably happen, honestly, more and more as we get further into it, because we have both like past and future to look at. Like, we're really in the middle right now. Message received. Yeah. Notes taken. I'll be chill. Oh, it's not just you, John. It's not just you. It is. This is like, there are definitely, like, I know that like you are very concerned about the stream and my experience, which I totally appreciate. But it's all over the place, and it's on me to moderate and to let people know what I expect and what my priorities are. Because if my priorities were different, then I would absolutely want to handle these things differently. Like, if my priority was to analyze CR as a media piece and like review it and talk about like how good or bad it is as a media piece, I think my opinions on all of this would be very different. But for me, the media piece aspect of it is, I don't even know if it's secondary. It's probably tertiary. Of like, the media analysis of it is something that I like, but it's not my primary goal. If it was, I would be way more concerned about spoilers. Honestly, if the media analysis was my main goal, I don't know if I could do it live. It would be cool. I would have to do maybe a subscriber only mode or something, and I would have to have like way more explicit rules. But it's a lower priority for me. Appreciate the reflection. Sounds like a good direction. Good. Yeah. And it's that's I'm working on mechanical stuff behind the scenes to make the stream better. I'm thinking about the I don't know what you even want to call it, the philosophy of the stream. Sounds fucking pretentious. But the tone, I guess, if you want to call it that. Reminds me of Legend of Vox Machina, of all the Legend of Vox Machina reaction channels, where as soon as a person calls Raven Queen evil, the whole comment section comes to correct them. Yeah. It's not just me, but I feel both notes to my core, and I do want to be more chill in chat. It's good advice. Good. Okay. I'm glad that it's that it's encouraging self-reflection. I'm always good with that. Community seems pretty good so far, but there's always a risk of people outside not being as well-meaning. Yeah, and that's something that I think about a lot. Is I'm going real slow and steady. There are a lot of things that I could do to bring on new audience really rapidly. So like, for example, something that I have been toying with and that I am planning on implementing in the next couple months is doing more like long videos about Critical Eyes and about Critical Role, more shorts about it, same thing. That would definitely bring a lot more people onto Critical Eyes. But I am in a fortunate enough position to where I can go slow, like I'm not in like desperate straits. And I want to go slow because I want to suss out these things and figure out what I believe about all of it and what I think should happen and what I want to do with all of it early when the community is smaller, so that I don't accidentally get into a situation where I have a massive audience and I have no idea how I want to handle it. But yeah. Things like what is and isn't a spoiler is definitely inherently in the gray area. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's like I have a general rule of I want to learn things in the same chronological order that the critters did, but sometimes chronological order is the worst way to experience something. Like it's the reason. What do they call I don't think they call it the hacksaw order, but it's like a way to watch like the original Star Wars trilogies of like you watch like 1 and 2, or you watch like I think like 4. And then you watch like 1 and 2, and then you watch 5, and then 3, and then there's some weird order that like is like a better way to watch Star Wars. And so sometimes that happens with Critical Role, where there are things that it makes more sense for me to experience right now, even though that's against like the general rule. So yeah, like what is or isn't a spoiler? It's super gray. It is never clear. May's the only one with Monopoly and Harsh. No, I mean, it is what it is. The big benefit of as a critter would have experienced it is really good for helping us make calls on edge cases, even if there are still times. Yeah. It's a good general rule, and then I think that the exceptions or the edge cases can be litigated as needed. Yeah. I personally would love another compilation video. Mr. Multi, you are speaking my language. I loved the compilation videos, truly. Like, very honestly. And I don't know how possible it's going to be to go back. I mean, I say how possible it's going to be. I have some ideas. I'll say that. I have some ideas, but that is part of the, I've mentioned the stream transcripts occasionally, and I don't know if you guys noticed, I don't know if any VOD frogs noticed, but last stream had chapters on it. The last bonus stream had chapters, because the stream transcripts are now in a place where I can tell basically the chunks where I'm talking. And I can get a decent idea within like 30 seconds of looking of what I was talking about, especially if I do it like right afterward. So I am really optimistic on, again, I don't know how it'll go for older videos. I might have to hire like someone that's not Eden, or I might have to pay Eden a lot of money to go through and watch all those, or I might just have to do it. Maybe fuck it, maybe that's something we could do during office hours, is watch through the old videos together. get Megaception to try and get some highlights out. That could be interesting. But yeah, the highlight videos are something that I like and that I want to do, but there's so much work. So that's why I'm trying to figure out ways to make them less work, because I think that they're really good. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, the order in which they were released. No, there's another one. Machete order. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my machete order. Yeah. As long as we know your priorities, we can all hold ourselves to our own standards. Yeah, absolutely. And that's all I want this to be. I'm not setting fucking rules. I'm not going to ban anyone. I'm not going to time anyone out. But I want to communicate it to y'all so that you know what I want, because I know the goodwill in this community. I know that any sort of negativity or toxicity has been from a place of wanting to make the stream better and make my experience better and ultimately make the experience better. And I don't even mean to use the word toxic. I don't think anything's been toxic. That's like a loaded term. But any sort of negativity I know has come from like a solid place. And so if I communicate my priorities, I truly, and this, I'm not just fucking blowing smoke up y'all's pants. I truly believe that you will do your best to meet my priorities, which I'm the luckiest boy in the land. Yeah. So that's it. Critical eyes, critical eyes. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I think with that, we can go into this. Okay. Huh. It worked. Kind of. Oh no. Oh, I forgot. Okay. Shit. We're going to have to watch it. We're going to have to watch it on this screen today, unfortunately. Because I totally forgot because of exterior circumstances. I had to switch around my monitor layup a little bit. My monitor layout a little bit. I don't know why I said layup. So I do not actually have I do not have the there we go. Yeah, I don't have the right ratios for the other screen, which is maybe a weakness in the design that if I mess with my monitors at all of the cut-ups get fucked with. I should have thought about that ahead of time. I can't believe I didn't. Let me just add a background. Oh, God. Okay, don't be in the front out of anywhere that you could have been. Why the front? Okay. That looks okay. We'll have to have Critical Role at home. For a sec. God, I keep moving it. Stop it. Lock. There we go. Okay. There we go. And then I can highlight chats nice and big. Ooh. Let's see. And I'll make you guys nice and big. I'll center myself. Perfect. Okay. It looks okay. It will do. I watched season 1 simultaneously with the equivalent of CR episodes, then watched the cartoon season 2. Oh, nice. What's up, Tai? Oh my goodness. In future, we can have a stream reviewing your stream of Critical Stream. Yeah. Honestly, that seems not to be the worst scene layout ever. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's definitely not terrible. I can put together something that's okay. And this is one of the most frustrating, how do I say it? It is one of the most frustrating dualities about me as a person and as a creative is I can put together something that I think looks pretty good. Like I can put together 6 out of 10s all day. I can put together a 6 out of 10s. No problem. But I have a 7 out of 10. Ugh. A 7 out of 10 is like 10 times as hard, 20 times hard, 100. It's every step above that easiest step is just monumentally difficult and finicky for me. Oh, thank you, Sign, for the 5 gifted. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm glad that, okay, this might sound a little bit odd or weird, but I am glad that it is easier both for you guys and for me to interact with gifted subs, man. That was one of the real motivators for me getting rid of the $3.99 tier. I wanted to get rid of the $3.99 tier, period. But one of the real reasons, the main reason for that is so that gifteds were easier to interact with. Because, like, you know, a lot of streamers will do, like, doing this, you know, do like, oh, I gotta do this or else I have to gift chat 100 subs, whatever. Like, that sort of challenge is so much easier for me to interact with if there's $0.99 as opposed to $3.99. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very happy because I think gifteds are cool. Thank you so much again, Sign. And I'm glad that more people can get fun badges and emotes and shit. The fun thing about lower prices for the memberships, they can get out more. That's exactly what I'm saying, Sign. It's me and Sign are on the same wavelength. You look good in a yellow box. Is it my angle? Is it my is it my look? Is being in yellow? Have I told you guys why my colors are yellow and blue? I mean, it's really easy. Blue is just because it's Paige's favorite color, and I also like blue a lot. But yellow is my favorite color. But the reason yellow is my favorite color, I can actually track down the reasoning for why I have a favorite color, is because I used to play a lot of board games when I was young. Who could have guessed? But I am conflict avoidant. Ooh, sparkly letters. Conflict avoidant. And I hated fighting over piece color for board games. Because I liked blue, but everyone wanted to be blue, and I hated fighting over it. And no one ever wanted to be yellow. Yellow, at least in my friend group, lowest pick rate of the piece colors. And so I started picking yellow first just because I didn't want to have any manner of conflict about it. And then people were like, why are you picking yellow? That's weird. And I was like, oh, cause yellow's my favorite color. And they're like, that's a weird favorite color. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then I did that for so long that now yellow is actually my favorite color. I legitimately just love the color yellow now. I think it's bright and fun and nice. And even when it's like desaturated or more pastel, I like it. I just like yellow now. But it definitely came from that. Oh my gosh, yeah. 10 out of 10 times I'm a 6 out of 10. Is that what you said? I mean, pretty much. I think I'm a pretty solid 6 out of 10 in most areas of life. And then I really try to get the other ones up. Inflation of subscribers, yeah. This is why I always choose yellow. Yep. Do you have a previous favorite color? Probably blue. Probably something very normal, if I remember correctly. Maybe orange. I liked orange a lot. I used to have a bag that was blue and orange. So I like that color, but I like yellow more. Now. I actually like yellow, but I never use it because yellow has always struck me as attention seeking, and that's the antithesis of me. It's so interesting. Yeah, I used to have, like, even when yellow was my favorite color, I never like bought yellow clothing because I agree. It's too stand out. Which is so funny, you know, me being here as a streamer, saying that I don't want to take up attention. But this is controlled attention. I get to turn it off. I don't like attention in public because you can't hit a button and opt out of it. It's also why I don't like social interactions. And it's why I love streaming, because it is social interaction where I start to feel bad, and then I can just be like, hey guys, actually I'm going to end stream, goodbye. And then I'm alone, and it's the best. That's one of the reasons I adore streaming, man. Anyways, we've gotten way off the beaten path. We gotta do a takeaway. We're 30 minutes in. I appreciate you listening to my ramblings. Despite, So I wrote this. I'm glad I've started writing the takeaways like the day after, like 2 days after I watch, so that it's still fresh. And sometimes the takeaways help me remind me what I thought. So I liked 53. I liked 53 a lot as a example of DMing. As a viewer, and this is where we talk about, like, you know, what are the priorities of critical eyes? What am I looking at here? As a viewer, my interest waxed and waned, you could say, in the episode. I don't know that I was the most interested in it. I got a little bored. Definitely accelerated into the end as like a you know, an episode. But all that to be said, as an example of DMing, I loved it. I really, really liked it. I think the players had a lot of fun. I think it hit the right beats and the right tones in the right order. And I said here, despite initial reservations and viewing preferences, I really liked the way that Matt ran the cooldown / prep. It was a really kind of, it was a nice little trough. You know what I'm saying? He gave the party a generally low stakes dungeon, if you even want to call it that. Generally low stakes dungeon to fuck around in, then offered the possibility, or possibly the most morally gray thing that we've seen in Critical Role so far. Honestly. Which is very, like, as I was thinking about this and marinating on it, like, Critical Role's had some morally gray points, some morally gray sections and segments, but I do think that the interaction with the herd and the factions within the herd and whether or not, you know, they're going to go after Umbrasyll, I think is probably the most morally gray decision that Vox Machina has had to make yet. And they really haven't even made it yet. And I immediately go on to clarify. That's not to say that it's explicitly good because it's morally gray. Morally gray doesn't mean good. I actually think a lot more like modern stories get caught up in like, oh, they're an anti-hero, but they have a heart of gold because they have trauma, but also maybe they were always a shithead. And, you know, how does one interact off of the other? And how do you view their fucking... Sometimes it's nice to just have good and evil. Like, that's... morally gray is not always an amazing thing. But the sequence with the herd and subherd was really solid, and it fit really well into a character, Grog, whose personal plot has actually been pretty, like, stealth nuanced. Like Grog's plot on the outside is want to get stronger, how get stronger, evil artifact or friend. Not super, it doesn't sound very nuanced, but you know, and I think you can chalk that up to Travis Willingham playing a pretty archetypical character and engaging in pretty archetypical arcs and stories non-archetypically. Like, he's taking those things, and I think a lot of them on this are, but I think Travis is the best example of taking something that is like a standard in people's heads, and really doing something super fucking interesting with it. You know, really elevating it and not taking it in any crazy directions, but doing it so well executed and so honestly, with a bunch of other honest and invested people, that it makes it amazing. You know, most of VM is pretty archetypical. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I think that's because so many of them are first-time players. Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. Like, I think that Grog is the most obvious, I think, archetypical character. Mostly because a lot of people engage in that archetype and are bad at it. So I think that's why his is the most obvious. But he's engaging with it and doing it so well and so honestly, and is making the archetype a real character that is still the archetype. And it's difficult to do that because typically when someone engages in an archetype, or maybe not typically, but I think a lot of times when people engage in the archetype, they're engaging with that archetype or they're modeling their character off of that archetype to take work off of themselves, right? They are doing that. A lot of people are doing that because they don't want to think too hard about their character. But that's not the case at all with Grog. Grog is not big strongman because Travis doesn't want to think about Grog. Grog is big strongman because that's who he is. And he is a full-fledged character out with that as its core. So it's Grog's plot is nuanced because Travis Willingham is nuanced, and he plays Grog as a real nuanced character. So it's just, yeah. But I think with that, fitting the herd and these decisions in with the herd was just a really solid choice on Matt's part. Even like hearing his thought process with the herd and like the way that he designed them and set them up was really interesting in the Periscope. I do still have my worries that I expressed at the beginning of that episode about like, where do we go from here? How do the players participate in this plot? But I think that outside of the larger plot, I think that the herd and how the herd has engaged with the Chroma Conclave has been exceptional. I think it's really, really solid, good world building. Mega seems to get bored when it's no Matt, only VM. Yeah, he's like he's a little Mercer stan. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to. Maybe someone can do an analysis of Critical Eyes and see every time I said I was bored and try to draw a correlation. Maybe that's the whole thing. Because I will say, a lot of the times that I find myself bored or disinterested, I relate it back to Whose Line Is It Anyways? A show that I really like, but I don't like that tone in D&D and like TTRPGs. That said, this 53 was interesting because I was on the cusp of being bored. Like, they never caught me too lacking. I mostly get bored when they're just like fucking around somewhere and like not actually doing anything. When they were fucking around in the dungeon, into it. I'm there for it. When they're fucking around in the mansion, I don't know what that says about me. I don't know what that says about my interests, but that's the main pattern that I've garnered about myself so far. Is it's like when they are fucking around in an enclosed location with no progression, no stakes, no goal. That is when I start to lose interest. But when they're fucking around and there is a goal, I'm down for it. How are you? I'm good, Duncan. How are you? You sound like a judge on MasterChef complimenting a good dish. I mean, that's analysis for you, baby. It was a good dish. Wasn't for me personally as a viewer, but it was a solidly and competently prepared dish. It's not a bad thing at all, and pretty much all of them have already added more depth. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, Daniel. Yeah. Left alone at downtime, basically. Yeah, kind of. Especially when downtime doesn't produce anything. Like, I liked downtime as a mechanic in D&D. Like, I run Xanathar's downtime in every game that I run. But yeah, it's when there's no there's it's when it feels like there's nothing happening. Cuz even when they're fucking around, I feel like I have to watch it because occasionally during their fuck arounds character growth happens. But most of the time that's not the case. So when they're just like fucking around in the mansion. But I very much understand why people like that. I understand why the cast is down with it. And as a DM, I would be down with it if my characters were doing that at the table. The one that I had the distinct problem with was when they were fucking around in the bar in Vasselheim. Because that specific fuck around actually lowered my suspension of disbelief because it had certain ramifications on the larger story. But when they're just fucking around in the mansion, there's no suspension of I don't have to fuck with my suspension of disbelief at all. I fully believe that the party would do that. And so that doesn't take me out of the story. And I think that's the most important part. So, if I'm at the table and my players are fucking around in the mansion, I'm letting them go ham. So that's why I think it was a good example of DMing, even if as a viewer, I'm a little bit less into it. Let's see the comment highlight. I don't even remember what it was. Easter Slice. Oh, yeah. This is a discussion we had last time about Matt shortcutting the narrative by telling the players what their characters perceive or feel. My feeling is that the DM should not tell the players what they feel or do, essentially. And then they kind of posit that they might be more used to taking like acting direction, and they might be more used to not only receiving that direction and receiving it well, but like playing off of it and, either downplaying it or upplaying it, you could say. And so it works a little bit more for this table, but it's maybe not good, like generalized advice, which I generally agree with, especially the aspect of it working better for Vox Machina and Critical Role. But I do think that it could have a place at most tables to some extent. I think it definitely has a place at a minority of tables like Vox Machina, like Critical Role's table, where like I think it has just like a solid place and it just like works. But I think even at most tables, I think it can exist to some degree. I just haven't quite figured out what that degree exactly is. And something that I bring up kind of in my thought process is players that are either used to taking direction generally, like Vox Machina, or just players that might find it harder to emote/interact without a bit of guidance could find this sort of thing useful, whereas players that are very into hard roleplay might find it more disruptive. And I do think that's kind of what we talked about last session, is useful versus disruptive. Of how useful, and I mean, honestly, when it comes to a lot of the ways that you go about describing the world as a DM, it's a useful heuristic to keep in the back of your mind. Is this more useful or more disruptive? It is probably a lot of other things as well. Like, you're never just saying things only to be... You're rarely saying things just to be useful, but weighing that kind of pendulum or that kind of scale of, is this more disruptive than it is useful? If so, the other factors probably don't overcome that. But feeling out when it's disruptive versus useful, that's hard. That's not an easy, just like, oh yeah, just do this. That's not easy at all. There are definitely some episodes where you could cut them completely and plot-wise nothing would have changed. Yeah. But that's a lot of D&D. That's that, a lot of D&D's like that. Possibly even this one, Daniel. I doubt, I'll tell you this, any session that has a 4-hour runtime, most of this, at least the second half, is going to be important. Because Matt, we know, is always aiming for over 3 hours, but as close as he can get to 3 hours. We know that. Maybe that changes in his brain at some point moving forward, but that's the last I've gotten from him, and the time codes seem to bear that out. He's normally like 3:15, 3:30, 3:45 sometimes, but it's normally not over 4 hours. So if it is, that's just something, and that's something that, like, I'm a VOD frog. If I was watching Critical Role at the time, this is something that I absolutely don't consider a spoiler, because I would not have been watching Critical Role live even if I was into it at the time. I would be watching the VODs, and so I would see the runtime, and I would see 4 hours and be like, uh-oh, this isn't a crit miss. And be like, uh-oh, something's gonna happen. So I think at least a decent chunk of this is gonna be impactful. I think these players are more than comfortable telling Matt, no, yeah, absolutely. That trust can change how you play things for sure. Positively, yeah. I mean, this is something we've kind of, I don't want to say danced around, but we've talked about a couple of times in terms of what works for Vox Machina, or what works for Critical Role, what works for Matt and his players. And there are a lot of things that either I wish you could, I wish I had that, extreme level of trust. Like, I wish I could do that. You can only do that with an extreme level of trust. And then there are other things where I'm like, I don't even think that that's a good thing to do. Like, I don't think that that'll work at most tables, but it works here because of the extreme level of trust. So, like, that trust both mitigates bad or risky things, or it mitigates the bad parts of certain decisions, and it elevates the good parts of a lot of decisions. Like, having extreme trust between the DM and the players, it is really, I mean, I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but, like, when we talk about, like, I think the secret sauce, the lightning in the bottle of Critical Role, is that they're all professionally trained actors and voice actors. But even then, you can see that it's a good table, regardless of that. And I think the secret sauce to it being such a good table is the extreme trust that they all have in each other. And that is something that, like, you can build and you can work on. But that's not like DM advice. That's, that's like interpersonal social stuff. But it definitely, like, I don't like to speculate about, like, the players and their relationships to each other and their personal lives. But I would be patently shocked if I found out that they didn't have a lot of trust in each other. I would be absolutely shocked. Let's see. Yeah. In modern day, even live frogs can know the runtime. Yeah. That's fair. So they publish the runtimes. I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Yeah, but I mean, so I don't consider the runtime a spoiler, even though here's an extra layer of nuance for you. I do consider it a spoiler. But it's a spoiler that I would have engaged with, and I can't, if I was watching it at the time, and it's a spoiler that I can't really stop myself from engaging with. Like, even if, like, John didn't note it in the time codes, I would see it when I pull up the VOD. Like, there's no way for me to not know it or to avoid it and to, like, disregard it. It's just a 12-hour long fight. Yeah. Not everyone knew each other well before the birthday one shot. I bet if we could watch the one shot tale, it would have been less good. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm eagerly waiting to get to a live so I can voice my opinions on your takes. Ooh. I'm excited, 4147 Ross. Wait. I think I recognize you from the comments. I think you've left some really good comments if I remember correctly. Sometimes the YouTube is weird with the names, so sometimes it'll switch out names here and there. But I'm pretty sure you've left some comments that we've gone back and forth in. I'm excited too. I'm excited for you to get to live. I like comments a lot, and a lot of people leave really solid and well thought out and well formatted comments. And almost every time I get one that's really good and it's really thoughtful, even if it, calls me dumb and stupid, I'm always like, man, I wish that person was at live so we could have like hashed this out in the moment. I love that sort of shit. For others, meme like heavy combat description was a thing. Oh yeah. So I think it's at the bottom here. Yeah, combat medium speed up. Yeah, so I asked John, I was like, don't do like a fucking calculation. No comments yet? Oh, okay. Then maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Either way, excited for you to get to live. But yeah, I said, I was like, tell me if it's low, medium, or high speed up, because it'll help build my expectations, especially if something is going on like the health stuff, like the canker sore stuff. I don't want to get an hour into the episode and then have to dip. If it's like a really low speed up episode, like if it's a low speed up where it's like, I'm averaging like 1.2x, an hour into the episode for that is much longer than if that hour is combat and it's high speed up. So this is like a spoiler that I explicitly asked for, because if I know the general speed up, this is like average gut feel from John across the entire episode. If I know that, it helps me more, it helps make it a lot easier for me to know what are the risks associated with this episode, about how long is it going to go. Like, I think for this episode, I have a calculation that I run to estimate what I think the length of the stream will be. Let me pull it up, honestly, because I didn't actually look at it for this one. So my prediction was 10 hours for this whole stream. So, when I have the issues with like the canker sores on my tongue, I see 10 hours and I'm like, fuck, might have to split that up. So then I can go into the episode, I can send out an announcement. It makes it a lot easier to manage. Or a lot easier to like set my own expectations, which is good. Yeah, and that's another like spoiler that is useful. There really aren't any live frogs anymore, sad face. Oh, because it's all pre-recorded. Look, they don't engage with chat anyways. Why even have it be live? IMO. They haven't really interacted with the chat in a very long time. Dude, I don't remember, at least during the actual game itself. I know that they used to do, more live events, and I can fully understand being sad that those are gone. But I haven't seen them interact with chat since like episode 3. Like and they took chat off screen. Like, I sometimes forget that these are live. Because it's and I just like kind of think that they're like kind of lower production. So I think it makes total sense that they're pre-recorded now. Yeah, it's really sweet how close CR is with each other. Yeah. Said thoughtfully, I've thought really hard and think you're dumb and stupid. Okay, unironically, I've kind of gotten a comment like that. I've kind of gotten a comment that is like, I think you're being dumb and stupid here. Here's why. And like, they laid it out. And I was like, okay, I disagree with these points. And we got to an understanding. And I've had another one that was even more negative. It's on like I don't even want to say what episode it's on because I don't want people to go and look. But it's on an episode, and they are essentially like called me like very arrogant and very like some not nice words, but they backed it up with like evidence. Like they were like, you know, you said this without evidence, you said this without evidence, you said that in this way, and I think it came off very arrogant. And like I read the comment and I was like, okay, you know, this is something I'm going to take on board. Like, even though I don't think I'm arrogant, if I'm coming off to someone and they have reasons to back it up, like that's something I take on board. I don't mind getting those sorts of comments. Do you think there are some situations that whether or not there's combat can be a story spoiler? Me and John debated that. Me and John really debated that, and there probably are. But I was basically like, let's run it until that comes up. And then when it comes up, you know, maybe it is like one, you know, maybe it is like a large spoiler. You know, maybe that does happen. But we'll try it. We'll run it. And if we get there and it's too big and we don't want to continue, then, you know, we tried a useful technique, and the casualty was maybe a cool moment. So that is definitely a risk factor, Sputnik, I think. But it's a risk that I'm willing to accept because knowing the speed up is legitimately very useful for me. They still do live events. Oh, well, yeah, if they still do live events. What up, Little Hill? I'm an engineer, so I have plenty of time to listen while designing, refining on EP49. Nice. Very nice. Nice. Question is whether it's worth the added info for Mega. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it is additional info for me. And right now, it has not spoiled anything. I think we've been doing this for the past like 4 episodes, maybe 5. And it hasn't spoiled anything. If it does spoil something, I'll have to, you know, maybe reconsider it. But we'll see. I really enjoyed a video last week. Basically, I'm not watching the video, but reaction to clickbait title feeds the YouTube monster. Oh, someone left a comment. They were like, I'm not even going to watch the video. It's not scripted. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. If I clickbait and someone doesn't want to watch the video because I clickbaited, that's fair. I got to hold my hands up. There's nothing else I can say. I did indeed clickbait. So if you're not down with that, totally fair. Yeah. Well, I started watching you 2 weeks ago and really had fun. Hey, what's up, Badir? Quick feedback. Do you think you will highlight your videos because I barely watch 4-Hour Critical Role? Yes. Okay. So yes, actually. The last stream that I did is the very first one that I have highlighted. I've done like chapters on. And now that I can do chapters, it's easier. I was just talking about this at the beginning stream. I want to do more. I don't know how quickly. They're a lot of work, the highlight videos. But I am working on ways to make it happen. Because I also really want to do it, and I know that people don't have time to watch the entire thing. We've also debated, instead of doing it in like 5-episode chunks, doing it in like smaller installments, maybe having a second channel with like edited down VODs. I'm working on some stuff, but yes. Anyways, with that, I think... Let's see, 245. Yeah, we're looking for 253, and I think we're kind of good to go. I think we might just be ready, folks. Do you think we're ready for the frickin' weekend? I think so. Love to hear you have a follower from Turkey VTW. Yeah, hell yeah. I love having an international audience. It is something that, like, not in like a wow, look at me, so cool. But because it is such a good way to get a wider variety of perspectives. Like, even though, like, the US is huge, so many different types of people, so many different types of perspectives and opinions. I don't think that the well would run dry if I was if I had a majority US audience. But having a majority international audience, I think, brings in even more layers of perspective, which I love. Only an hour preamble. I know. It's like I'm a fucking amateur. Critical Eyes is totally scripted. All the script says is more doors. Exactly, Dr. Hoovy. Wait, I just realized that, like, when I gesticulate, that can be bad. So I want to move that up, but I also don't want. Oh wait, no! I need to have it. I need to make it smaller though. Oh, you guys are so tiny now. If I do that. Is it worth it then? Nah, I'll just keep it where it was. It was working where it was. I should just not fuck with it. But my inclination is to fuck with it. So does this mean an 11-hour stream? Look, if my cankersaurs can handle it, I'm down. If my cankersaurs can handle it. I don't know if they can. I am confident that the cankersaurs can handle a 5-hour stream, which would be about halfway, probably about when we get to the midpoint, depending on speed up. I am not certain if they'll be able to handle the 11. So we'll have a check-in halfway through. This might be a two-parter. We'll see. If it is, it will be because of health reasons. But let's get it going.
Charity to take a look at. So please, you guys have been tremendous help in the past, and you may continue to be so if you wish.
Absolutely.
It's good times. Let's see. Taliesin is joining us from Hawaii. Where are you at, Taliesin?
Taliesin.
Where am I right now? I'm in my hotel room. Somewhere on. Which island are we on? Oahu. We're on Oahu.
There we go.
For Amazing Comic-Con. So.
There you go. So if
I will say, Sputnik, I have realized recently that the new scenes, like this scene, I've definitely noticed that I'm doing less of the, like, typing out my thoughts and waiting, because it's a lot more disruptive if I do that. So I have been thinking about switching up my scene placement a lot, or my like element placement. And honestly, I'm not hating this so far. So maybe we'll get another placement switch up. I was kind of afraid that this would make Critical Role too small and this too small, but actually they might be like an okay size. I kind of don't hate them the way that they are right now. I said this one isn't bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. It gives me some vertical room for some things. Maybe. I'm going to be considering it. Longtime VOD watcher. What's up, Daniel Vasquez? What's up? I much love Mega. Thank you. I'm excited to get to see Tutu. I'm excited. But, people like the setup? Okay. I'll keep that in mind. That this one has good feedback.
you're on Oahu and you're watching this, you should go say hi to him. Not right now, but like tomorrow and Sunday. And the rest of the great folks that are out there with you, all good people. Big old Street Fighter troop. Also, we have Travis and his nose goblin. and Laura, you guys are attending Puerto Rico Comic Con.
Yeah, we leave at early tomorrow morning.
You sleep on the plane?
Good time.
Yeah, if you're in Puerto Rico, come see us. We'll be there, totally sleep deprived and bushy-tailed.
It's a good one, though.
Good time.
It's a good one?
Yeah, I went to that one.
Okay, wait. Actually, speaking of the timer, we're not putting the timer back. Timer's gone. If anyone was hoping that the timer was coming back, timer's gone. I can put it on screen if you wanna. If you wanna look at it, say 0. But the character budget is going really well. The character's spoken. But I do need that on screen. Because there is room over my head. There we go. Okay. Would it even be May if we didn't have UI elements playing musical chairs? I'm always gonna be moving around the elements. That's true. Also, what up, Elizabeth? Hello. Disrespect the timer. Look, maybe I'll bring the timer back at some point in some way, but I doubt it.
We're excited to go.
Yeah.
San Juan, baby, San Juan!
It's pretty slick, actually.
That's awesome.
Definitely. Let's see. Does anybody else? You said you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, Sam Riegel and I are both in Fallout Far Harbor, which is the first big DLC story dump. Bahaba. Fallout is my favorite way to escape reality, second to this. So I hope you come join me. I play a human guy, but there's also a synth. Look for the synth.
That's cool.
That's
I think I play.
They're both in Far Harbor. That's crazy. I don't know. I did play that, but I didn't play too much of it, I guess. Thank you, Mr. Multi. I appreciate it. And I hope I've been thinking about, I guess this is a little bit of an announcement. I guess tomorrow we're gonna start programming a video game. Whoa, I guess I kind of forgot about that during housekeeping. I'm an experienced programmer, not an experienced game dev, and I'm gonna follow the pirate software guidance from start to finish, see how it goes. But with that, I've been watching a bit of pirate software, and as he says, go make games, you can do it. Go DM. You can do it. Go DM and just think about your games. So I'm very, very, it makes me very happy to hear that like my ideas and my insights are helping. And I hope that that you are also, that I'm also teaching you to think about your own stuff and come up with your own ideas, which I'm sure you are. So yeah, that's so awesome. That's so sick. Game dev is in such a weird place right now. I know, which is why I want to get into it. I want to get into it as content. I probably wouldn't do it off stream, but I think it'll be fun to do on stream with everyone. We all remember the good times of the timer. Yeah, exactly. Anyways. Lots of
Play a
talents.
synth.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there you go.
There you go. That's it.
Good plug.
You can also build a Taliesin robot, which
Yeah.
I did and named it the Taliesin 2000.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you could take either a custom build Taliesin or me as your companion to Far Harbor and talk to these schmucks,
Yes.
and have a full critical role after the apocalypse experience.
Pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Okay, we're actually gonna be downloading that soon. So that happened. Anyone else have anything they want to mention before we jump into the game tonight?
Let's do this.
I don't want to die.
All right, let's go ahead and get this started as we dive into tonight's episode of Critical Role.
Oh, you're right. I got distracted. Oh wait, no. Okay, we actually we watched we watched through one of the timestamps. So we watched between this and this on accident because I was getting distracted by chat. That's my beat. But actually, we have now overlapped that and gone back into a timestamp.
Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening.
Oh.
No intro.
Oh, wow.
Nothing's happening.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wait, let's act it out.
Was it
We'll
just
act it out.
Act out the
Okay.
intro.
Taliesin, do something.
Oh, it's you. We're scared.
Shoot from your screen.
Shoot.
You're
You're
Percy.
shooting your gun. Be Percy.
Then you got hit by a wang.
Oh, you fall over.
Oh no.
Well done, Taliesin. That was great. Actually, you picked him up.
She's
Picking
healing
him up.
him.
Picking him
I'm
up.
holding him. My eyes are closed. I'm holding my holy symbol.
And it got
That's
weird.
added.
And then now swing.
Oh, Lord Bailey standing for an orc. Shoot, shoot. Oh, God. Now be yourself. Oh. And then I'll go, oh.
And then I'll go, and I wink at you.
Oh,
And then I shoot him.
God, help us.
And then they get the actual intro. That was funny. It's very funny to, like, it's cool to be serious and to put effort into things. Like, I think that sometimes people are afraid. And when I say people, I include myself in this. It's sometimes scary to be, like, serious and to put effort into things and like, especially when, you know, you're make-believing. It's sometimes scary to, like, put your whole self into that. But it's even funnier when you have done that, you've been serious, you put yourself into it, then you have full license to fuck around on it. Like, that's yours now. You get to make fun of it. That's really funny. The failed intro.
Previously. Vox Machina, the band of adventurers walking through Taldore post the attack of the Chroma Conclave, an evil troop of chromatic dragons that are currently holding power in this.
The subtitle said open beta, did it? As open beta leaves its red and raw path, we rebuild? What? We stand up against the swaggering might of the new programming. What? What is going on?
This tonight. As open beta leaves its red and raw path, we rebuild. We stand up against the swaggering might of the new programming, and we stand tall.
Must be Geek and Sundry shit. Yeah.
Obviously. Vox Machina, the band of adventurers walking through Taldore post the attack of the Chroma Conclave, an evil troop of chromatic dragons that are currently holding power in this region and beyond, after tearing through many of the bastions of society in this countryside. They have gone on a quest to search for artifacts known as the Vestiges of Divergence from ancient wars and heroes of old and yore to use against the leader of the Chroma Conclave, Vordak, the Cinder King. Now, as part of this confrontation, they made their way to the city of Westruun, which was partially destroyed by the black dragon Umbrasyll, and then while it was off and away with the rest of the Conclave, was then conquered by the wandering Herd of Storms that Grog once belonged to. After finding it occupied by these rather brutal, barbaric individuals, Vox Machina set into the city, destroyed and tore down their leader Kevdak, to much fanfare from Grog's past.
Yep.
And through Kevdak's son and Grog's majestic might, they decided to take the remainder of the Herd of Storms and take out the dragon Umbrasyll, the great black dragon. Half the herd didn't like that and has decided to go ahead and leave to their own devices, where the rest of the party possibly prepares to plot and plan a way to kill an ancient black dragon.
I don't know what
Good
gave
luck,
you
guys.
that.
I don't like the way you said that. Why'd you have to say it like that? It's just a black dragon.
What am I going to say?
Why the dramatic pauses?
Because
Seems
it's
Find a
extraneous.
way
Use
to
the word
find
somehow.
Use a lot of pronouns.
I like it. So, you guys, having just finished this stroke of a conversation with Zanror in the Margrave's homestead, the dawn light is now beginning to pour over the mountain range in the distance. The day has officially begun.
Oh my god.
Zanror has stepped out and has begun to speak with a few of his trusted herd members, to stand down for the day, letting people know that the battle has been postponed for the time being, while a plan is to be enacted, prepared for, and then sprung the following day. The rest of you guys have this day to prepare however you see fit. So, I ask you, what would you like to do?
I would. We have so many things.
So
that we
many
need to
things.
do.
I will say, off the bat, this would be a debate for me, and this would depend on the expectations that I had as Matt as the DM for what they are even able to do. But a lot of times, depending, I will abstract that as downtime. Now, I know Matt did not have Xanathar's downtime rules at this point. Yes, downtime exists in the DMG, but it is, I don't even want to say fixed, but maybe refined in Xanathar's. And I like a lot of times in Xanathar's, it's like run them by weeks. A lot of times, I think of that time range as a recommendation, because you can use that same system at whatever time scale you would like. So it depends, but a lot of times, and especially, I think I'm going to lean into this even heavier now that I played BitD. BitD has a very strong core of players decide what they want to do in the abstract. You assign mechanics to it, you make some rolls, and then you go into like real time. Or if it's too complicated, then you go into real time. But you still have some overarching mechanics kind of dominating and dictating that. And that is what I want to bring in even more into D&D, is the aspect of take a shot, BitD reference, yes sir. Even on time scales as short as a day, I think it can be interesting to say, okay, just to make it frankly simple, and especially since they have 7 people, I think that organizing it through like you all get to do one thing. And, you no matter what that thing is, even if it, in reality would take less time than some of the other things, we will make the same types of rolls for it. And maybe we'll zoom down into real time. Like that's very much a thing within Xanathar's downtime, is like sometimes you zoom into real time. Sometimes there are complications. But we're going to make rolls for it. We'll role play it if we need, and you'll all get similar levels of reward, even if, again, in the reality of the fiction, even if in the fiction they would have taken, differing amounts of time, we're just going to say one action, similar rewards for any given action. Now, whether that's giving some people more reward, some people less reward, we want to try to meet in the middle. But it is, I think that especially for this type of thing, and especially when they only have a day, Percy can't make a big ass contraption in a day. Like, they can't do anything overly complicated within a day. So just saying you get to do one thing, that's it. That's much more what I lean towards nowadays. Downtime is a lie. All time is downtime. Downtime is still really hard for me to run as a DM. I'm not sure I've ever seen a DM do it a way that I'd consider ideal. It is, I will tell you, if you want a training boot camp in how to fucking run downtime, BitD forces you to do it. It's not optional. The overall pace, the overall cycle of Blades in the Dark is you start in what they call free time, which is kind of like where you can kind of do whatever you want, but you can't like make like big overarching mechanical rolls. Like you can like, search out leads, that sort of thing. Then you go into a score, which is the equivalent of like initiative or the action tracker in Daggerheart. You go into the score, very real time. We're acting things out in the moment. And then when you exit the score, there is mandatory downtime. So as soon as you exit the score in Blades in the Dark, everyone gets 2 downtime actions, and they have to use them. And those downtime actions are like the ways that you heal. They're the ways that you clear stress. Like they are necessary. And then you don't get downtime again until you do another score. So it is basically free time, kind of a weird soup, and then score, and score gets you a downtime. And then you're back into free time. And that definitely, like, I still don't know if I would run it well enough to, like, pass your bar. Like, frankly, I don't know if I would. But it definitely has made me better at it. It's whatever I was at before, I am definitely better now in probably all systems, but especially in something like D&D, for having been forced to run it in Blades. So it's if it's something you're interested in, Blades will teach you. CR is we'll do it live when it comes to downtime. Yeah, which I think that's not even I don't think that's uncommon. I think downtime is underutilized. And I think that I would say underutilized. Even if you do it badly, I think it can fit into some beats well. Like if you're not used to it, I wouldn't do it here. If you're not used to running it, I wouldn't do it on like the time scale of a day. I think that could get really fucky. But if you're not used to it, but you want to try it out, something where like, the party doesn't have an immediate goal, like maybe insert some downtime between the Briarwood arc and the Chroma Conclave arc. Maybe insert like 4 weeks of downtime or something and kind of play around with it. Just to test it out a little bit. It doesn't even need to necessarily be like additive if you just want to mess around with the mechanic a little bit. After running Masks, I'm trained to treat downtime as the main story. Is it really prominent in Masks? I know you mentioned Masks before, and it sounds very Powered by the Apocalypse, Bit D adjacent. So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's where a lot of the major story beats in Bit D occur, because downtime is also where you're encouraged as a GM to update like faction relations and faction movements. So like factions like changing or like executing on plans typically isn't supposed to happen during a score, because scores are already complicated enough. And then it's not supposed to happen during free time, because free time does not have an explicit amount of time that it happens. And it also doesn't have like an explicit order that it happens in. So everything is kind of supposed to be in like, not time locked, but like no factions like progress their goals. Time only sort of passes during like free play. During downtime is where like things get updated, the situation changes, and then you can react to that during free time and during scores. So I definitely agree, or I very much understand that perspective of like that's where the big story happens. Yeah. For this party specifically, doing it in real time is what they prefer, because they so love talking to every NPC. Yeah, and you can do downtime where you still talk to people. It's more an abstraction of how much time a single action roll can affect. So like if I say I want to go carousing for a week to like, discover leads. You make overall rolls for that week. I think in Xanathars you make 3, if I remember correctly. I haven't run it in a while. I haven't run D&D in a while. But you make like 3 rolls, and then you zoom in. So you can still have them do the role play. You can still have them talk to the NPCs. And that way you can also kind of abstract in the story all of the boring times while still having them canonically like exist. So like it implies that like, oh, this is the one interesting conversation during that week. So I don't have to include boring conversations as a DM, but they're still implied to have been there because this is the one conversation that we're zooming in on during that week. And then you still get that fun role play. Definitely not always right or good. One way that you can handle that is if there's multiple roles. Oh, actually, you're hitting on exactly what I was about to talk about. Roles then zoom in. So it's one of the systems where you know how beforehand if you pass fail and then you act on how that happened. Sometimes. So my favorite way to run downtime is with D&D downtime, BitD downtime. There are complications. So you roll your rolls. So like, actually, let me just bring it up so that we have like a common thing that we're talking about. Xanathar's downtime. Let me just see. Buy a magic item. Okay, these are just the things themselves. Let me go to D&D Beyond. I have the books. I might as well use them. Because the way that I have found that is successful for me to run it is, I don't want to say non-intuitive, but it's not something that I think you would immediately come to when you think about it. So when you are carousing, right, there's the resolution of it, and they just make one charisma persuasion check using the carousing table. And then there's the check total. And you can either just have this go off, just say you've made 2 allied contacts, just flat out. You can just have that happen. Or you can insert a complication. So it says, as a rule of thumb, a character has a 10% chance of triggering a complication for each work week of carousing. My chance is a little bit higher, I'll be real with you. And inserting these complications and role-playing those are really often really fun. So like that's like really, really fun roleplay, is zooming in when the complication starts. Or you can say you can play these results a little bit more variable. So you can say check total 1 to 5. The character has made 1 to 0 hostile contacts. And then you zoom in and see if they can, like the person will start hostile and you see if the character can diffuse the situation. And even this, characters made an allied contact. You could make that 0 to 1. You can make that 0 to 2. You could make, actually, I think varying it by 1 degree is what I typically do. So it would be 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. A lot of times I'll give them a little bit more benefit. I'll be a little bit more generous. So I'll say, on a 6 to 10, they have made 0 to 1 new contacts. And then we zoom in and we see if they can get that 1, even though the check would have had them make no new contacts. It would have had them be 0.
Warning, ad incoming, take cover.
Take cover. So essentially, the thing that the downtime roll dictates is the larger context that the roleplay is happening within. So that we don't have to play out the entire week of downtime to understand the context. We don't have to go through the process of finding the contacts, of getting in contact with them, of meeting them up with them. And we don't have to go through that day by day for them to get a lot of contacts. If they roll really highly, they make 3 to 4 contacts. And we just go to the one that is a little bit on little bit hesitant. And then we just give them the other 3 for free. And say, okay, these are your contacts. If you want to go and talk to them later, you can. They're starting out with a good predisposition to you. Or, again, like I said, you can do that, or you can zoom in on a complication. So that's one way you can treat it, which actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, is maybe something I'll think about for the future, is you can roll the complication chance. So, 10%, you roll a d10. If the complication doesn't trigger, you give them a zoom in that, maybe is more positive. If the complication does trigger, you zoom in on the negative. And so then they don't get the chance. So say it's 16 to 20, they make 2 allied contacts, but you roll the complication trigger, then instead of getting to zoom into the optional additional benefit, you zoom in on the complication and then potentially trying to diffuse a negative. So I think that's what I really like to do, is use the roll to abstract the large period of time and then zoom in on something interesting. I almost always have a zoom in on a downtime unless the character seems really not down with it or like really uninterested. Anyways, we're in an ad. I'll read some comments when I get back and wrap the conversation quickly. But I will be right back because we're in an ad. Goodbye. Oh no, I just realized that this scene that we're on right now doesn't have a streamer bot profile for it. Oh no. Wait, I can do this 1 second. So original watching original, I guess. I'll do it really, really fast. But yeah, so that's kind of my general mindset when going into downtime. And maybe the quick heuristic for it is the downtime roll beforehand defines the context of the situation that the player finds themselves in. And if the player is not interested in role-playing out that context or that situation, then you can skip it. And if they are interested in playing out that conversation, then they play it out. Blades is a little bit more mechanics heavy, honestly, in that realm, because it's like the only way that you can heal. So like downtime is tied with what are essentially long rests in in D&D. Similar, it sounds like, to masks. So it's a little bit more mechanic driven in Blades, but that's my general heuristic for both.
Many things.
Where do we begin?
We need supplies.
Yes.
We need to parlay with our
chains.
allies. We need lots of chains.
We need a plan.
We need to trap.
Well, yeah.
We need to trap the dragon, obviously, on the ground.
We need to trap the dragon.
And for that, we'll need some bindings of some sort. Chains.
We need to
hooks,
surprise the dragon.
I would have thought in that direction.
Okay.
When we're ready, I was thinking of basically building what is essentially a giant pressurized mousetrap.
How would you do that?
How much time do you need for that?
In 24 hours.
Us?
Do I have access to some people to help build it, and some perhaps broken homes and chunks of wood and chain?
You do have access to broken homes, chain, and scraps at your disposal. As far as individuals that can aid you, I mean, you have individuals that can help hold things for you. The Herd of Storms is not known for its ingenious use of tinkering tools.
What about blacksmiths in town? Are there any blacksmiths left?
You can check around.
This would be a blacksmith just to make a couple of springs. This is not a complicated. This is literally something you could make in the woods. So a slightly more complex version of something you could make in the woods to catch birds. I'm just building a really big version.
Okay.
It's just it's a whole bunch of systems like this. So we'll have chains and weights on them that when you disrupt the weight in the center, the whole thing goes thunk, throws a whole bunch of. It's basically a netting system. I mean, it's an entanglement and will be an entanglement.
Okay. All right. Here, I'll tell you what. Go ahead and roll an investigation check, Percy, if you don't mind.
Can we help him at all?
Yeah, I'll say if you want to go ahead and aid to that, and take advantage on that, Percy.
Okay.
Thank God. Yeah, no, not very good.
What'd you roll?
I rolled a 6.
With advantage?
Advantage?
Yes.
All right.
Is 6
Fuck you,
total?
Hawaii.
Why?
So, after taking the better part of about 3 hours scouring the town, most of the remaining
3 hours? You took 3 hours doing that?
3 hours through. So, from what he's doing with the 8 of the people that aided him, which would be Vex, asking about the few folks that have any experience with the blacksmithy are the folks that make horseshoes. And that's the extent of the complication they can create. They can attempt to, with your aid, to craft some springs. They have the materials to do very, very basic metalwork and ironwork. But the people you encounter, 2 folks in particular, they're both a little confused by your overall design and are.
Yeah, I mean the thing about it, about bringing in engineering projects into D&D, and about trying to get like real mechanical benefits out of those things, is that there is so much context around modern engineering as opposed to medieval engineering, in like access to material like purity and like forging. Like a really good example is something like double boiling in cooking is relatively simple for us in the modern day. And I am not saying that it would be impossible to do back in the Middle Ages, but it would be substantially harder. And we double boil in cooking. I was talking to a chef recently about this, so I learned about double boiling. That's why it's on my mind. And the reason we do that is because it gives us precise control over the temperature. We've had similar advances in metallurgy and engineering and material manufacturing and drafting and measuring, and all of these things require not just a fire. You know, like not just double boiling. Double boiling is when you boil a pot of water and then you put, so like if you're making like scrambled eggs, right? You just like have your pan, Mega's mic level's low. I would believe it because the CR audio seemed a little bit loud to me. So I am down to turn it down, but I was waiting to see if anyone commented. So I'll turn down the CR volume. But you, so if you're just like cooking, scrambled eggs, you know, it just, you crack the egg in, you heat the pan with like fire or something, and then the pan heats up and then it cooks the egg. With double boiling, you heat a big pot of water, and water can only get to a certain temperature. It can only get to its boiling point temperature. So then you put the pan in the water, and you know exactly how hot the heat source is, essentially, because you're separating the cooking surface from the, you know, fire. Like I was talking to the chef, and they were like, oh yeah, like with like a stovetop, I could get this pan to like 500 degrees. 500 Fahrenheit. Whereas, you know, water, much lower boiling point. So it helps you be really consistent and really control the temperature. It's hyper precise. So you do it for things like melting chocolate, where you don't want the chocolate to burn. I don't know much about cooking. I learned all this very recently. But it's just, it's things like that. I don't know. Everything you said is correct, though. For a big net trap doesn't hit those issues, I would even disagree with that, Daniel Grace. Of like big net trap, like, you know, Percy's talking about how he could build a big net trap in real life. That's what he's thinking in terms of. Like the strength of a big net trap. Can it hold itself together? Can he prevent there from being weak spots, like give it structural integrity throughout the entire trap to the point where it won't just snap if if there's, you know, a small amount of pressure in the wrong spot? Like all of those things are things that we take for granted. Like the idea that a rope that we buy from the store is going to be equally strong throughout its entire length. That is something that was not guaranteed until relatively recently. So that's not necessarily to say that you can't do, you know, projects like this in D&D. Obviously, magic plays a massive part in that. Like, magic plays a massive part, but you can't just take real-world logic and apply it to D&D, because everything is so different that you cannot just say, like, I'll build it in an hour. Because I could build it in an hour in real life, and I have magic. There's also a lot of downsides. Tal's very lucky that Matt seems to be very jack of all trades. Like, knows enough to go back and forth with him. Would hate to try to describe why all this stuff fails or not. Yeah, which is why my general recommendation is that DMs don't try. DMs, I don't think, should try to, like, really in detail make these things work. If you have a player that is really interested in this sort of stuff, I've brought up, like, abstracting it as magic items before. Don't even call it magic items. Don't say that it runs on magic. But you can use the magic item pricing and, like, power scale to inform material prices and difficulty of building these sorts of things. Because we have rules for crafting magic items. We have guides on how to rate the rarity of a magic item depending on its effect. And we have guides for how hard it is to craft any given magic item of any given rarity. So if you have a player that's really, really into this stuff, don't have to call it magic, don't have to call it magic items. But I think you can take that system to assess how hard this is going to be, how much it's going to cost, etc. That sort of thing. I think in this case, it's a big wood and steel trap, no nets, like a mouse spring trap. I mean, even the concept of steel is not ultimately consistent, you know? I mean, yes, we've had it for a long time, but again, it's purity, it's strength. All of these are variable. Who knows if a steel spring scaled up could handle the forces that Taliesin is wanting to put on it in this time period. You know, like, it's just, someone commented earlier, like, scaling something up isn't that easy. You know, things don't scale evenly. So even something as simple as that can have, if you really think through the logic of it, if you don't just think through the base logic of it, because there is like base logic that, you know, Matt and Taliesin are talking about, but there are so many other things that fuck with it if you think about it too much. So that's why my recommendation is just to not even try to fuck with it, like the real world logic of it, you know? You said my second half before reading it. Oh no! I said it before reading it. Oh! You're so right. I didn't even read the second half. You're so right, Daniel. It does run into issues with structural strength as you scale up. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I guess I was just thinking different when you said purity. If you extend that to rope, then sure. Yeah. It's just maybe material quality is maybe a better way to talk about it. Yeah, rather than like purity. Yeah. Material quality is... Yeah, probably a better way to say that. I heard that as things like purity metal ores. Very fair. Very, very fair. I feel like Matt has become a mini expert in metal forges because he's been DMing for decades, and apparently all of his players are super into that sort of thing. I mean, Orion seemed to be super interested in it too, so I'm sure that like when my players are interested in something, like if I have a player that's talking a lot about ecology and they want to know a lot about the plants and animals, I do research into plants and animals so that I can more, you know, I can go back and forth with them better. So I'm sure that Matt has done a similar thing with these sorts of topics, you know. Steel is incredibly complex, even now with our tools and knowledge. Steel is hard. Yeah. So that's sort of what I'm going after here is yes, it might theoretically be possible, but it might be way harder than you think. if you're a player and if you're a DM, neither of you probably know all of the factors. So just abstract it into a system that already exists is my thought process, you know. She is purity, she is strength. She is a dragon-sized mousetrap.
Kind of waiting for you to lead them in a specific direction.
Okay, I'm just going to take them and I'm going to start building one and see if they can follow suit then. So,
okay.
Three springs will be more than enough for this design.
How big a spring?
3 springs will be more than enough. It'll be more than enough, Matt. I have not tested the tensile strength, but it'll be more than enough.
I would say, how tall is this dragon?
Roughly 30 to 40 feet, depending.
About a
5 stories.
About a 2 to 3 foot spring then. 2 to 3 foot springs made of solid iron. Just enough to like lift the systems and pumps.
Okay.
And it's just I mean, like, you make them like chainmail. It's, you know, it's a process that exists.
Yes, it does.
I'm not going nuts.
I'm not saying you're going nuts.
All right.
You are a little stretched for supplies and manpower based on the circumstances.
And all that is to say, I am down for him to build this. I would use the system that I describe. I would abstract it as a magic item, but I'm down for him to work on it. Especially like, you know, if he's talking like, you know, a one-time use thing. It doesn't matter if like the springs like shatter themselves apart when they extend. Like, there's a lot of ways to do this. But I'm not trying to like calculate out prices. I'm not trying to calculate out power. I am saying, okay, you have this much time. In that amount of time, checks DMG. You can make something that might be able to replicate this effect. It'll cost you about this much if you check it, or like if you like succeed on a survival check, you might be able to reduce that price or that time. Those are the types of things I'm going after. I'm still very down for him to try to build it. But I'm not. I think it is a little bit of a fool's errand to actually try and really science it out in this make-believe game. I believe Tal was talking from personal experience. He was about in the time of dinosaurs. You're so right. He's lived in every era. He knows all of the stuff I'm talking about from personal experience. You're so right. You're so right. I should just shut the fuck up. Dallison knows all.
Circumstances in Western for a complicated task, but I mean it's barely possible. But it will pretty much take the entirety of your day and most of your night to prepare this. You'll be able to squeeze by with the construction of the device, and have maybe just enough room for. I'll let you squeeze in a long rest.
That'll be perfect.
But that's success or fail.
I'll do.
Okay, what are the rest of you guys planning?
3 hours ago, back when we were still together,
Yes.
I pulled Scanlan aside. Listen, I want to talk to you. I have an idea.
Is this about Kaylee? Because I'm still worried about her. But I don't think that we should discuss her right now. We have other things. Why are you harping on this?
We want to make sure that
You're my daughter. Just give it a rest.
You're right, I should have never dragged you down into the sewers, and I apologize. It won't happen again. But listen to me.
Oh.
I have an idea. It's a dangerous idea, and I don't want to lead with it. I don't want to fight this dragon, to be honest, but I think the group is going that direction.
Yes.
If we do, Percival's run off to try something. Maybe we're just going to run out. I have an idea that only you can do.
Okay.
We have a rod.
Yes.
Not the cube. A
Yeah.
rod that cannot be moved.
We could use it in some way.
Sorry, flies in here.
What is Vax gonna pitch? What is Vax gonna pitch? Because immovable rod shenanigans are some of my favorite. It's one of my favorite items. What? He's gonna pitch a tent. I want to try and nail it. I feel like I know enough about Liam, and he's talking to Scanlan about it. Okay. I don't. My brain is still in the like set up the bucket of water, but the bucket of water is their big robot on the door frame. My brain is still in that mode. The solution that I thought of, not the solution, the idea that I am picturing Vax pitching is saying. This is so stupid. I don't think this is going to be it, but this is the only thing I can think of. This is the thing that keeps coming to my mind. Liam is going to try to bait Umbrasyll into using the breath weapon, but Vax is wearing the fucking resilient armor. So he's like, I'll be fine if it hits me with its breath weapon. So I'm going to run up as it opens its mouth to breath weapon. I'm going to stick the immovable rod in its mouth, and then Scanlan, here's where you come in. You summon Big B's hand, and you give it a slap on the ass like a bull in a bullfighting ring. It'll be so surprised, it chomps down and tries to get away. it doesn't. The immovable rod is so small. Oh yeah, he's also a rogue. So breath weapon, breath schmeppin. He's also a rogue. So then. Umbrasyll gets slapped on the ass, bites down on the immovable rod. It's in his mouth, but he's a dragon. He's big. Immovable rod is small. He doesn't notice. And he attempts to fly off, and the immovable rod tears through his insides and out his tail. After Scanlan slaps him on the ass with Bigby's hand. That is my envisioning of what Vax is about to pitch. Now, would that work? I don't know. We will see. But either way, he's about to pitch some harebrained scheme, and I am so excited to see how Matt reacts to it.
You can teleport. And I...
Okay, immediately wrong. Teleport up to the mouth? Or like put it in the mouth and then teleport away? Teleport inside? Because of course. Because what if Umbrasyll drops it if it's in his mouth? He's smart. So Scanlan can't teleport inside. I guess he's gnome-sized. He's small. I don't know if that's allowed with Dimension Door. Oh.
I'm almost too afraid to even suggest it, but if shit goes south, how would you feel about teleporting inside of Umbrasyll's stomach with that rod?
Well, what has he eaten? Because it could be nasty in there.
I assume it would.
Lots of acid damage. Since they're talking about it so far, I'll just leave that highlight there. Since they're talking about it beforehand, I would have enough time as a DM to look up if that's allowed. So I would look it up while they're talking. But if they're in the middle of the battle and they pitch this to me, I'm probably not taking the time to look it up and litigate it, and I'm probably just allowing it. Because that's hilarious. And it's very, evocative. It's, very, like Jonah and the whale of, going inside of this big beast. The only question on my mind as a DM is what are the risks to Scanlan going in there? All he has to do really is save 2 dimension doors. He can dimension door in, then dimension door out. How much damage would he take while he's in there? Those are the thoughts going through my head. That's very funny, though. I love it. I love it as an immovable rod plan. Because most of the time, the immovable rod isn't super... a lot of times you have to be really creative with it to make it useful in combat, because it can only hold up to 500 pounds. So, for really big monsters, they can normally overcome that. But 500 pounds of force is absolutely enough to tear up some insides before the squishy, fleshy innards can exert enough force on it to break its click. That's a good plan. That's a good. Since they're pitching it ahead of time, I'm looking into the details as a DM, which I think is what Matt's about to do. But if they're pitching it to me in the moment, I'm saying yes. That's a good example of rule of cool, where they're thinking, they're being clever. They have it's not just like, and I think a good heuristic for rule of cool is it a clever idea that requires multiple steps, which is weird, but I think it's a good heuristic. Or not even multiple steps, but multiple different features or abilities or weapons to execute. Because a really common example of like bad rule of cool is the really bad example is like shape water freezing the blood inside of someone and doing a bunch of damage. That's bad. That's not fun rule of cool because it sets up a terrible precedent. But this solution, can it be used every single combat? Yeah. I totally agree, Daniel. And this has multivalent factors. Oh, it's 8,000 pounds? 8,000 pounds. Even so, I'm sure that a dragon could exert 8,000 pounds of force, but its fleshy innards certainly cannot. But it's like, does the rule of cool require, like this rule of cool requires the dragon to be big enough for Scanlan to teleport inside. It requires them to have an immovable rod, and it requires Scanlan to be able to teleport inside. So there's actually 3 factors that all have to be true in order to execute on this plan, which makes me way more likely, immensely more likely to say yes to it, because it is something that is not infinitely replicable. If any of those 3 things are not true anymore, you can't execute on this plan. So I really, this is something where I'm so much more down to like call it rule of cool. Like, again, if I have time, I'll look up the nitty gritties. But if I don't, this is a plan predicated on multiple factors. I'm down with it. Does anyone know offhand if he visibly reacts? Yeah. Matt has internalized that they're actually going to try this and is doing what Mega said. Yeah. Which again, I like that they're talking about this, ahead of time, but sometimes you come up with plans in the middle of it. You have to improv it as a DM. So I like that he's looking it up, but yeah, if they surprise me with it, I'd probably say yes. The risk is that the dragon can easily get pretty high in the sky. Yeah. And there is risk to it. There is risk. That's another part of the rule of cool is there risk? Like the rule of cool, like evaluation. Because they think they know that they can, dimension door in and Scanlan will survive. And, they think that all of this will work, but the dragon could react in some way that surprises the players and puts a bit of a kink in their plans. So that is another factor in me being way more down to say yes to it. I think important. Could it exert this weight over the area of the rod, though? I think it probably could from the outside. Like, I don't know exactly, how big it is, how much it weighs, but for an ancient dragon, I'm making a DM call at that point that it can probably break the rod. If they clicked it and just put its paw on top of it and leaned on it, I think it could probably break the hold. But inside of itself, where it can't exert its entire body weight. It doesn't even really know what's going on, so it's not, thinking about it in that way to purposefully exert that weight. I don't know if it could exert 8,000 pounds. I'd probably, in the moment, rule that it couldn't and just have the fucking immovable rod fucking tear it up its insides. It's a good plan. You said if they surprise you, you say yes. What if they talk about it ahead and raw it says no? Ooh, it's a good question. Like if raw it says dimension door can't, teleport inside of a creature or something like that. It's tough. It honestly at that point, I know this is kind of a lame answer, but it kind of depends on how cool it is. it kind of just legitimately depends on like how cool is it. For this, I'm probably letting it go. I'm probably letting it happen. If it's less cool or less interesting, because the other thing about this is they're probably losing the rod. Like, more than likely, they're losing the rod. And that's especially another thing if their plan involves them losing something, or it involves the potential of losing something. Like in this case, let's say he looks it up and Dimension Door says like, you cannot teleport inside of a creature. I would maybe let them do it, but outwardly say beforehand, stomach acid and shit. Don't know if the immovable rod will survive. Matt has established already that magical items can lose their magic. If they're damaged enough, with the carpet. So that's there's another factor there. This plan is cool enough that I'm looking for excuses to do it. So if I can find an excuse, I'm doing it. But yeah, it would depend. That's the unfortunate answer, is it would probably depend on the plan. And that's just one where, if it's like a really lame plan that doesn't involve a lot of risk, I'm less likely to say yes. But this involves massive risk. It's really fun. It's clever. I'm much more down to say yes. Is why this, if they surprise me, I'm likely to say yes, is why players, I don't think you're wrong, Sputnik. It is, and I think it is unfortunately unsolvable. And I don't even think that players intend to do it. I don't think they're doing it on purpose where they're thinking about that, but I do think that it is an unspoken pressure that players definitely subconsciously feel. But it's just unfortunate. I really don't know that there's an actual solution. It just is what it is. It's kind of just a fallout of the improv nature of the game, which sucks. The dragon could also teleport and just leave Scanlan to fall to his death. Also true. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so much interesting risk to this, which makes me way more likely to say yes. Yeah. It's like lifting a barbell with a pinky. You'll break your pinky. Yeah, it would have to have a way to exert its force in a relatively safe way. Yeah. If it's not allowed raw, just make Scanlan make an Arcana check. Yeah, and that's kind of the layers. If I can reasonably excuse it to myself, rule of cool, you can just do it. If I'm really debating between allowing it and not allowing it, I will institute some sort of check. Hey, it's not allowed raw, but, it's within reason. Maybe we can turn the spell into a save or suck, and, it'll just be a little bit more risky, or you might have to try multiple times to execute on it. I think that's kind of my middle ground ruling, if I'm really uncertain. And then, again, if it's super uninteresting, shape water freezing the blood in someone's body, it's just a no. So yeah. I keep forgetting about the carpet ruling. That does make magic items a lot more vulnerable. Yeah, absolutely. With the carpet ruling in place, it is very reasonable that the stomach acid of an inherently magical creature like a black dragon, an ancient black dragon, could absolutely destroy this rod. I think that is well within precedent, which makes the entire situation even more risky. We don't want to put a no. We often instinctively make it harder for the person to say no. Yeah. It's tough. But anyways, yeah, this is an interesting plan, and I'm very excited to see how Matt responds to it. If I had to predict, I think even if he finds something that says no, he'll probably say yes. That's my prediction. and how effective it is, I think it's probably going to be pretty effective.
Well, and I don't know anatomy. I haven't talked to my sister about this. She might be able to give us input. And I don't want to lead with this. I don't want you to do it because I feel like you could melt in there.
Of course I could melt in there.
But
I'm a little man, and he's got acid on him.
I know. I'm looking for a way through this fucking clusterfuck, and if there's nothing else to do, you could go in there and click that rod and give him the worst suppository ever invented.
You listen, if there's a man invented who can go to where shit is made and make some really good shit, that's me.
Guess that the bit rate is probably pretty shit. Let's see if it's even showing up. Yeah, it says connect streaming software. Okay. I think we are back. So, don't get too excited. I'm gonna be real with you. Oh wait, are we back? Wait. Wait, I can't tell if we're back or not. Okay, basically, internet went fully offline. It rarely does that. And I didn't even realize my old internet provider, for some reason, sent me a text this morning that was like, hey, sorry that you're receiving a service interruption. So I think that there might be something going on around. Don't know what you mean by back. So my router has a backup that runs through my phone's hotspot. So I don't know if we're back on the hotspot or if we're back on the real internet. I have to assume that we're back on the real internet. Otherwise, things would not be looking so smooth. I'm going to try to turn off the hotspot and see if we're good. Okay, yeah, we're solid. Okay. Dude, I'm partially regretting not moving out of this building. It's really tough because this place is really cheap in a pretty good area. I really like the area, and it is like a lot more expensive to move somewhere else in this area. But the building's internet, man. I don't know. It's frustrating. Let's say that. I'm thinking that I might what I legitimately might do is for my routers, I can set up a I can designate internet backups, like any device that like puts out like a hotspot signal. So I might get a satellite or like Wi-Fi backup and just hook that up as the backup in case this happens again. And because I know that there's some that you can get there like pay as you go. So I might have to do that because I just don't know, man. It is, yeah. I don't know. It sucks. It sucks. And like, I think that all of my stuff for the bot is going to be all fucked up. Like all of the calculations are going to be fucked up. So I'm not going to get as good of transcripts because StreamerBot had a fatal exception because I crashed. It's just tough. Let's say that. Internet in the U.S. is a cluster. Dude, it's... I thought when I moved out of Kansas, because Kansas, some areas of Kansas are internet deserts. It's not, the most uncommon thing, especially out in western Kansas. I thought when I moved to a big city, when I moved to Chicago, like, I'm not even like in the Chicago metro. It's not like Chicago asterisk. It's like, I'm like in Chicago. And I don't know why. I just assumed it would be like better and more consistent. But I'll tell you, I never had any fucking problems with the internet in Lenexa. Like, I had some problems, but never to this degree. Never to this degree. It's crazy. Don't dox yourself. Nah, Chicago's big enough, and y'all don't know what I consider a good area. Chicago's big enough that I feel all right about. I mean, there's more people in Chicago than some states. So I feel pretty safe in anonymity with that. I would never tell you like the suburb or the actual city in Chicago, but internet in general is best in the suburbs. Inner city can suffer from age. I have to imagine that that's it. It's that there's like not underground lines, that they're all above ground. I that's the only thing I can imagine. So I have thought about moving further out or maybe to a bigger building, but we just re-upped our lease. So I need to make it work here. But anyways, that happens again. I mean, we're still aiming for halfway point. I know that that's a bit ironic given where we currently are. Still aiming for halfway point. But, you know, if we have another drop before the halfway point, that might add to the decision to stop there. Cue the 30-second clip of that GeoGuessr guy finding you. That GeoGuessr guy uses social media presences of which I have very little. He uses like photos. I don't have an Instagram. It's unironically one of the reasons that I don't fuck with like Instagram or anything, even though I know that it would be like good for my brand and like it would be good if I like posted more like behind the scenes stuff for you guys. That is absolutely how people find you. Like, yeah, Rainbolt 2. The GeoGuessr, all of the people that are super proficient as GeoGuessr are crazy though. Rainbolt is legitimately a semi-good hacker. Yeah. Yeah, the social engineering on those guys is legitimately wild. What's up, Lexi? Anyways.
Talk we had about a week ago.
Is this about Kaylee again?
No, we can talk about Kaylee in a couple of days, all right?
Okay.
You told me how things were better now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yes.
That was fucking insane. They are not better. Everything is terrible. Our lives are terrible. They are way worse than they were 6 months ago. Way worse. I was with all of you assholes a year ago and 2 years ago. They're way worse. But
You're saying that. A sullen loner who is confiding in one of his closest friends while holding him on the shoulders. This you never had before.
I slap him on the cheek a little bit and say, "You are a fucking madman, but I am glad you're here.
I'm glad to be with you.
And I love you." And I give him a playful slap across the face.
6 points of damage.
If only.
Unexpected sneak attack. 76.
60 points.
All right, so I'm going to go talk to Vex.
Okay.
An expert in dragons, I hope?
Ish.
I'm gonna go talk to
ask her how dragons work, how their bodies work.
What do you mean?
Where they're vulnerable, where they make the acid, where they have lungs, where they have
Well, they have lungs in the
stomachs.
normal
How many
places.
stomachs do they have? Are they like a cow with 8 stomachs or something?
Go ahead and make an intelligence check with advantage.
I got like 2 or 3.
Shut up.
10-point increase.
17.
17. Yeah, I mean, dragons have the pieces you imagine they would have in the right vicinity. Their stomach is acidic, quite acidic, as it has been known to dissolve some of the hardiest of creatures, let alone break down some basic minerals and materials. So it's not a happy place to be, but it's not like instantaneous dissolution. It will hurt. Also know that the breath weapon, the acid that a black dragon, which uses acid as a breath weapon in a stream.
I will also say that aspect of it also makes me more likely to say yes. Despite all of the, or not despite, even with all of the risks that we talked about, of like maybe the immovable rod gets destroyed, maybe the dragon teleports, maybe the dragon flies way high up, and Scanlan can't quite judge the distance. Like, regardless of all of those potential risks, there is also the aspect that, like, Scanlan will almost guaranteed take a bunch of damage, and it's not like he's Grog. It's not like he has, like, a giant health pool to fall back on. So there's a fourth aspect here of a requirement for the plan that Scanlan has enough HP to not die in the process. That is a fourth factor in the plan. And even if he does have enough HP, he will still take a bunch of damage and be weaker after the plan executes. So not only are there risks, but there is also essentially payment. And that is something I'm super down with. So, like, especially whenever players are doing something non-standard, which just, like, in general, flat out, I want there to either be risk or I want there to be abnormal payment. So, you know, the normal payment within D&D is you cast a spell, you spend a spell slot. That's the payment. But if they want to use a spell in a non-standard way to do something non-standard, as part of the plan, I want there to either be risk, which leads us towards, like, you know, Arcana check, or, you know, turning it into a save or suck, or increasing the DC, you know, bunch of shit like that, or payment, which, him taking a bunch of acid damage, you know, he doesn't know how much it's going to be, so that's an extended risk for him, and there will be some manner of HP in payment for this plan. So that all of those things just make me more and more and more and more likely to say yes. So it's tough, and it's why I keep coming back to this, is because, like, the rule of cool is, I think, a foundational part of D&D. Like, it is hugely important. The improv, you can do whatever you want outside of the rules, outside of the explicit rules. I think that is a foundational concept within D&D. So knowing and having a good sense of when to use it, I do think is a huge part of, like, being a good DM and running fun tables that feel experimental and clever and all of this. Because otherwise, you know, it can feel, if you run it, and this isn't even to say, like, run it more RP based, don't run it wargamey. Like, wargaming can have absolutely just as much of this sort of stuff. I don't even think it comes down to that discussion. But if you don't allow, you know, that rule of cool, that improv, you might as well be playing, like, a board game. And board games are awesome. I fucking love board games. I have a huge collection. It's probably the thing that I collect, if I had to name a thing. I love board games, but that's not what D&D is. And I think the rule of cool is, like, a foundational reason why. And it should be, and learning how to use it is important. If you're willing to take this much damage and this much of a risk, who am I to stand in the way of your harebrained plan? Yeah, absolutely. Harebrained plans are fun. And if, again, like you said, if they're willing to take the risk, if they're willing to make that much of a payment, I'm willing to give them reward for it. You know, it's all gotta be risk and reward. They can't have reward without being intensely clever. Like, they can't have reward without risk, without being intensely clever. So I need them, yeah. I need there to either be risk, payment, or intense cleverness.
In front of it, much like your lightning bolt, does not come from its stomach. That acid is much more toxic, concentrated, and actually comes from a separate part of its body, a gland, a breathing mechanism that projects it outward.
Where's the gland located? Know that, like in his throat?
It's somewhere in this vicinity. You're not entirely certain.
So if I end up in that gland, that would be not good.
That'd be really bad.
Don't run away.
But that would probably be really hard to just get
Go
right
into a
into
gland?
that.
Yeah.
But you know, you wouldn't suffer.
It'd be instantaneous.
Quick, so quick.
So fast, so...
And warm. Very warm.
Also,
Yes.
Vexalia.
Oh. Getting fancy now, Scanbo. Scanbo, short hold.
Thank you. Your brother tells me that you have some sort of acid-resistant something.
The armor that I took from him?
Yes.
It's my armor. She
Well,
has it.
Are you here? Are
I'm
you nice?
here.
Are you next to me now?
No, I'm about 5 feet behind you, rolling my eyes and doing this the whole time you've been talking about dragons.
It's the armor that I won fair and square from him. Yes, I am wearing it right now.
Is that your primary armor?
It is.
How would you feel about me asking you to take it off and you doing a little unbuckling and giving it to me instead?
Scanlan, that's going to cost you a lot of money.
We could swap armor.
You think your little armor will fit me?
I have a pretty broad chest. These are pecs.
What kind of armor do you have?
I have cold snap leather armor.
Which is cold resistant?
Cold resistant. Maybe the dragon will throw snowballs at you.
I doubt that. What is it? Is it +2? What is it?
Yes.
Would it be
Plus
so
2
basically
on
the
top
same?
of the armor, so it's 4.
Yeah, so it's armor
Well, I
plus
can
2.
protect you.
Better overall.
Okay, well, sweet. Then yeah, sure, give it to me.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Strip on down there, Scanlan.
Wait, ladies first.
Unbuckle it and give it
you
to
first.
her.
I want to see the cube, and then I'll give you my armor.
Should we make it interesting and play a little poker?
There's no time for that.
All right. I very slowly and sultrily unbuckle my armor. Let one strap fall. Let the other strap fall. Just do a little shimmy and
This is
let
very-
it fall to the ground. Sort of like the crying game. Just sort of camera pans up a little bit, and it's just there's nothing underneath. It's just me and the cube, and I cry a little.
During which I pick up Scanlan's shawm and start playing it terribly. No idea what I'm doing. Do you blow into this? Do the strings? I don't know.
Go with what your body tells you to do. How are you going to take off your armor?
That's a good question. Do you want to walk away for this?
Yeah, I'll leave the room.
I completely ungracefully take it off and throw it at you. Give me that. How is this gonna fit me? I'm just naked trying to squirm into these like extra skinny jeans.
Actually, as you pull the armor pieces up, they shift and form fit to your size as part of their enchantment.
What color is it? Is it beautiful?
The cold snap armor is, I believe, dark browns with traces of white and silver along the edges. It has a kind of cold winter motif.
Does it kind of match my storm bow? It kind
A
of
little
does.
bit, yeah, I guess you could say that.
You might not be getting this back, Scanlan.
Oh, really? Well, what does mine look like?
For a moment, it looks pretty haphazard and hanging off you in time.
These are like sea cups up here.
As the armor slowly kind of retracts and finds itself in your form.
Oh, they went down.
In that moment, Scanlan learned a lot about himself.
All right, I feel good about this. Now, we'll continue our dragon lesson, I suppose.
Wait, why did you need to change? Are you going to be up close and personal with him?
Well, I think we all are. He breathes acid.
Well, yes, but
Yeah, so we could get hit. Now I'm more protected than you are.
this was a really stupid. Why did I give that up?
I'm very charming.
Now you're not here?
You told me to leave. You took off your clothes. I'm Liam. I'm not back. What are you talking about?
Are you planning on doing something?
We're all planning on doing something, and I don't think that my part of the plan is any stupider than yours will be. So, good luck to you. I'll keep your armor safe.
All right.
Hopefully we can trade back. And if not, you can peel it off my dead body.
As long as you're not melted from all the acid. Yeah.
I'd like to attune to my Frostbrand sword.
Okay, so you'll be putting aside the Mace of Disruption and taking on the Frostband instead?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Oh shit! I go running after Percival. I'm gonna go find Percival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, does that take an hour, or do I get to pretty quick?
You knew the direction he went, and thankfully, in the kind of awkward, still quiet that is the center of the town now, that's missing most of its populace, and those that are there are kind of acknowledging the tension of what might be coming. And many of them are now packing up and leaving and like getting out of the town, evacuating, and they've been notified of the possible coming battle. The sound of metal clangs in the distance and the gathering of materials from some of the rubble is not too difficult to discern over time. It takes you about a half an hour or so to locate them.
Oh, there's that white hair. Percival!
Yes, hello. Bit busy, what?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I reckon you're going to be busy with this all day, yeah?
Oh yes, this is quite a project.
I just realized that it is ad time, and the timers don't know that it's ad time because they got fucked up when we lost internet. So it's ad time. It's ad time. And I'm going to run an ad real quick. Take a break. Slightly longer break. I'm going to go take the dog out. Probably like 5 minutes. And I will be right back. And now we're actually getting into the swing of things. Hopefully no other disruptions. No other massive disruptions. I'll be back. Goodbye. What's up? Hello. How we doing? Oh, this is the wrong one. Boop. There we go. What's up? Back. We're back. And let us continue on.
And also tomorrow, you're probably going to be taking pot shots at that thing, yeah?
That's my hope, is to be honestly as far away from this as humanly possible.
That's probably not my plan. Can I have use of your blade?
Oh, the Dragon Slayer longsword. Yes, of course. Of course. I pull it off my belt and hand it off.
That shit's
Good
heavy.
health. It's, I'm a little terrified that you're getting that close to it, but here it is.
It's just in case.
It's quite a piece.
Good luck today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good
And
luck.
I am down to my normal sword now.
Okay.
Can I be talking to Zanror?
I'll join you in that.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
That was my
The
next.
two of you eventually find Zanror. Zanror and Dwara are in the process of piling weapons and armor with the rest of the herd as well into the center of the town where the battle outside of the Margrave's house happened. Most of the warriors there are in the process of kind of stealing themselves. Some of them are gathering the materials. Some are in the process of doing some minor ritualistic scarring in preparation for the battle. There's very little conversation happening. It seems like there is this kind of quiet understanding that this, for many, might be their last day. And they're kind of making peace with the coming glory of battle. And you'd expect this kind of sense of tense fear, this very kind of Battle of Helm's Deep type acceptance of doom. But there's a different personality amongst the herd here. There is almost a brimming excitement with the idea of possible glory, or at least a glorious end. And it very much befits the story that you've heard of Grog's past history, and very easy to see where he once came from.
I bring Zanror a big tankard of ale and sit down in front of him.
Oh, hey, good to see you.
Well,
I
What's
stand
this?
behind Vexalia.
These for me. Looks to worry, actually.
Don't worry, we wouldn't try to poison you the night before a dragon fight.
That would be rather stupid, wouldn't it?
You would.
And he just downs it all in one big chunk. Thanks.
Zanror,
Okay.
did I hear you correctly before that you have been the one speaking with the beast in the past?
I have.
So, when it comes and gathers its treasure, it stops and talks? Or does it just come and take it and leave?
It has at times. More at the beginning. If it had questions and seemed curious. That wore off after the first few times. Now it just seems to come and take and find its way out.
So if the treasure looked different this time, it might stop and talk about it?
It stops for a second. Maybe.
I'm curious because I know you said you are lacking in gold and treasure. What will entice the beast?
Beyond that, I don't really know. That's what... It's kind of forcing our hand. Right now.
What if we had a way of providing some gold, and maybe you provide an offering of a different kind? What if you say that your father, Kevdak, had been plotting against the dragon and you found out about it? Would you be able to offer his body and the body of his allies as tribute to the dragon? Dragons are vain.
And you do know specifically white dragons, or sorry, black dragons, they are, they're very cruel by nature. They actually enjoy messing with creatures they see below them, especially intended prey, torturing for extended periods of time before killing. They aren't comparatively as vain as other dragons per se, but all chromatics fall in some way, shape, or form on that same scale of self-love to the point of being a near disease to many of them.
I think that's fair, Sputnik. I think this sort of thing, what I was writing is even without doing the downtime stuff, I would really try to limit this sort of prep day to one general thing per player, just so that they don't get like too obsessed and in the weeds. But big asterisk to that. That sort of behavior, or that sort of DMing strategy, behavior, ruling, whatever you want to call it, style, is something that should be established during a lower stakes situation. So, to Sputnik's point, the players aren't expecting that out of Matt because he's never done it before. And they've been thinking all week, like you said, about what they're going to do. So now, if Matt sprung it on them for the first time right now, that would probably feel pretty bad. You still want to do what you can to rein them in and, have them not get too in the weeds again. And not trying to go we're not trying to go hour by hour here. But you probably don't want to introduce that concept of one thing right now when they have been thinking all week about potentially multiple things. It's a very good point about essentially style foreshadowing.
Zenwar kind of thinks for himself for a second and goes, we can certainly try. I mean, I've got no more use for it, though. It's going to be hard to convince it without a head. I think pretty sure Grog took that with him.
Well, we may be able to get that back. How are you planning on hiding your fellow warriors from the dragon so as not to attract its attention? Because we may have some ideas.
We'll have to share ideas. Ours was to go ahead and plot up Cat Shadow. Usually it's about noon when it comes down for the offering. We leave it what little we had left, possibly lose 2 men in the process of delivering it, and then when it returned to its place, we'd be there waiting to ambush it. Once it returned, use that time when it was gone to go ahead and hole up inside its home.
And set up the bucket of water above the door. Me and Zanror are on same wavelength.
Okay.
That was our intent.
We might be able to do one better.
A dragon's lair is not.
Especially a black dragon's lair.
We wouldn't do much damage to it there. In fact, it's probably laid several traps against us already.
Well, there's not much we can really do when we're all fighting with our fucking axes and swords, can we? In the lair, at least, it's stuck on the ground.
What if we could trap it onto the ground here?
How do you intend to do that?
We have a wonderful tinkerer. Quite talented. And is creating something to, trap the dragon.
Really?
Plus, we can provide several chains. Once it's on the ground, maybe your very strong Goliaths could, try to snare it, grappling hook it, throw some chains up and over.
This pile of weapons you have here, I see a decent amount of javelins. A rudimentary harpoon in the hands of some of your strongest could help wrangle him down.
He stops for a second and goes, I just want to be clear, we don't underestimate the sheer size, strength, and ferocity of this beast. With all 20 men, we might be able to hold it down. I don't know how long. I hope whatever contraption your friend is making is strong enough to aid us that last little bit, because I get the feeling that if our might is put to just keeping it on the ground, well, that's a lot less of our strengths that we could be tending to. A lot less blades we could put into its hide.
Well, hopefully it would only be needed for a small amount of time before our magic users have their way with it.
About that time, I light up my hands.
That's impressive. What else is impressive? Watching four of my friends melt in a matter of seconds.
That is very impressive. You're not wrong.
I just want to instill with you an understanding, not to be brash. Not to go ahead and run into this. Unless you're absolutely certain. Now, I've got chains, you've got chains. We've got strong men. If we put ourselves intent on just holding this beast down, I have the feeling, even with our weight behind it, it's going to be a difficult attempt. Do we have any other way of anchoring it down? Something else we can put the chains to?
About that time, I walk over to this... Is there like a stone wall in here?
I mean, there are pieces of stone building in the vicinity.
I put my hand against the stone, and I cast Transmute Rock, and I push my hand into the stone as it turns to mud.
And now turn it back, Enid.
And I take a spear that's on the floor, stick it in, and then turn it back.
All right.
And let go.
Me whip the Sephiroth fast.
See? Magic.
Transmutes.
Put my hand underneath the spear. Put my hand over the spear.
Where did the Statue of Liberty go?
Where is it?
Yeah, Montarak, yeah.
You pull out a hula hoop.
Lasts for, it's instantaneous. So he still looks at it, he goes, so, what you're saying is if we could find a few places in which the rock is close to the surface, you could lock these chains in?
I think I can lock the whole dragon in.
Once it's on the ground, if we can pull it down enough, she may be able to lock
alive.
its legs into the stone.
Beyond that, if that fails, and then I cast, for right now I'll just do Wall of Stone. I'm just burning through all my spells as a demonstration. And I bring up two pillows. And then we all lay down and go to sleep.
Hello, fire! Billy Mays here for the Ashari tribe.
Goose down.
You'll never get a better
Unexpected
night's sleep.
tactic.
I like how
We're walking through all these ideas and like none of it's gonna work when we get to it.
I blast up two pillars, kind of right next to Kevdak.
Okay.
Kind
That's
of.
catch the Kevdak. You mean Zanror?
He's dead.
Sorry, the other big Goliath leader.
Whatever your name is.
Whatever you're going
That one? Oh my god.
and kind of
Kevdak
trap him
Jr.
in.
Okay, kind of. War is kind of pushed to the side as the stone shoots upward. And,
Sorry, so I know. Did not mean to lay hands on you.
all right, your point is made. We've got two others who can do similar magic as you. Maybe not the same level, but
Fantastic.
want us to put them at your aid?
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Beyond that, in prep, I can dig a trench hidden underground around our trap so that whenever we're ready, your army can bust out of the ground
Surprise.
without being seen.
I've been seeing what we're going to bury, my man.
Yeah,
Very lightly.
pretty much. To be fair, I actually did it on a trap to kill like 8 of your men on the way in, and it worked phenomenally. So you should trust me.
It was pretty great.
It worked well.
I think we'll take our chances above ground, please.
Okay. We have talked at length about like Keyleth being a low charisma person and it not always being like entirely clear when it's like Marisha versus Keyleth, like what's going on. And that was like kind of one of the like jumping off points for a lot of the more the more unjust critique of Marisha and Keyleth. That is maybe the thing that she just said of I actually used the trap to bury or to kill like 8 of your men. This is maybe the time where I have seen such a direct characterization of Keyleth's low charisma, and I am so confident that it is Keyleth, not Marisha. I do, like, sometimes I'm like, oh, is that Keyleth? Is that Marisha? Like, especially with low charisma, it's I think it's harder to tell sometimes than low int, low whiz. Like I think that there's more established ways to play those things. And I think that Marisha, like we talked about with Travis and Grog, is trying to play this archetypical character, but as more of a real character. And I think we all like when Travis talks and does, you know, his kind of low int act, he says things that are very obviously misunderstandings. When Keyleth does her low, or when Marisha does Keyleth's low charisma act, I don't think it's ever like been like invalid, but sometimes it's hard for me to tell exactly if it is Keyleth or if it is Marisha. And I I think that was one of the times. I think that could also be construed as like low whiz or whatever. But I think that's one of the times where it's so clear and obvious. Like when Grog has a comedic misunderstanding, it's so clear and obvious that like, oh, Travis doesn't actually think that. This is an example of like a low charisma like role play where I am like so clearly like, oh, Marisha would know that that's a dumb, bad thing to say here. Whereas I don't always see that with Keyleth. So I really like that line as like a characterization line. Just for interest, can you guess what Keyleth's low charisma score is? It's hard because I think like what is considered a low score is kind of weird. I think that people consider anything that's a negative to be a low score because it has like a negative modifier on it. They're a little bit more intense and they did the rolling. So I'm going to guess it's like a 7. I'm going to guess it's like 1 lower than like what a low score would be from like point buy. And I mean, there's a kind of side conversation about like I think we've had this conversation before of like generally commoners have 8s across the board, and even if like commoners had 10s, like -1 is not that much less charismatic than just like an average person. So like typically, if you use something like point buy, no one's that bad at anything to where it would probably be like super noticeable. But people really like to play low scores. It's also why for point buy, I allow people to go under 8 if they want to juice other stats. Because I do think that going lower and having really negative scores can be very interesting. Marisha is slowly getting better at making the lampshade more obvious. Yeah, I think so, and I think that that's why the other day when she had the like why should I believe moment with the person, it like really threw me off because I think I was so not. I constantly forget that Keyleth has a low charisma. Like that is not something that is consistently on my mind. Like Grog's low whiz. Honestly, Grog's low score is the only low score that I consistently remember because I think he consistently characterizes it. Whereas I constantly forget everyone else's low scores. I think Scanlan has like an 8 in wisdom, if I remember correctly. But I don't remember most of the characters' low scores. I think that Grog, one of the additional things that makes Grog such a good character is that Travis so consistently and obviously characterizes Grog's weaknesses in good and fun ways. I purely asked because I was interested in your perception of how she's role playing. Oh, if I didn't know, like, there's like 2 separate parts of my brain of like, I know that Keyleth has a low charisma. If I was just presented with her gameplay and I didn't know what her stats were and I was gonna guess, I would guess she has like a 10, maybe a 12 in charisma. Like I would truly not assume that it was that low. It has not like sometimes she's a little bit awkward, but I've never personally read that as ineptitude. I have read it as like endearingly awkward, which could be construed as like higher charisma. But it kind of goes back and forth. So if I were just like flat out guessing, I would probably guess a 10. If I were just guessing, I don't feel like if I'm just like looking at it, I would be like, like straight 0. But I could see it, but separately, knowing that it's low, I would guess closer to like an 8 or a 6. But yeah, I don't really care about actually knowing. I'll just go in with the knowledge I currently have. If it comes up again, I might like look at it in the sidebar. I thought commoners had straight 10s. This is something that like I always have in my head as a heuristic that they have straight 8s. I honestly don't know where I got it. But that is a heuristic that lives in my head, is commoners have straight 8s. I could also be wrong. But even then, even if commoners have straight 10s, a -1 is not that much worse than the average compared to how some people like play a negative stat, you know? But yeah, it's really interesting. I think this is a really good characterization of like low charisma or potentially low wisdom. Like this comment of like bringing up killing his dudes as proof of your efficacy is funny and is also very, very blatant. This is the character, not the player, which I like. That all said, and this is one of the things I'm excited for in C2, is when it comes to blatant characterization, I think it is mostly for the other people at the table to understand your character and understand how to interact with them, and for the DM to understand how to interact with you. It's very possible that Marisha might have been way more explicit with her, like, you know, low charisma stuff earlier in the campaign, and then she, like, got less blatant as time went on, because I think that's a very natural progression within a campaign, is that you're very blatant about your, like, very core characteristics early on so that all of the players understand you, and then you get more nuanced and less blatant as the campaign goes on. So that's in analyzing how she is right now. I have to acknowledge that, like, this is, like, I've only seen a third, like, the third of her character and of her character's development. So a lot of the things that I'm looking for, that I would be looking for in the first third of getting to know a character, she might have done in the true first third. It's very hard to know, and it's one of the reasons that I think that'll be a big advantage of C2 as opposed to C1, is that those sorts of things that they might have done at their home table, they will actually get a chance to do in front of critters. You'd think it was blatant and not sure all critters thought so. Yeah, I can see that that they might not have. I think this has been the most blatant. This has been the most of like, oh, that's Keyleth, not Marisha, to me.
To be fair, I actually did it on a trap to kill like 8 of your men on the way in, and it worked phenomenally. So you should trust me.
It was pretty great.
It worked well.
I think we'll take our chances above ground, please.
The only thing I'm worried about, Zanror, is that if this ugly beast flies in and sees, how many of your men do you have?
Currently we're sitting at 25 total.
25 men standing
Including
around.
myself.
Don't you think it's going to be a little curious as to why all of a sudden, there's a large number of people around it that's never been there before?
You're asking me this. Our plan was to go inside while it was out.
I know.
But if you want us there, let's figure out a way to hide then. I don't think my men are going to like to be underground.
It'll be very spacious. It'll be a nice, like, big tunnel. It's not gonna feel like you're buried alive.
And what, they just leap out one by one through an opening?
Yeah.
It'll be super shallow. Just enough that they can just come on up and out.
It'll be awesome. It will look like they're coming out of the grave. They'll look like badasses.
I don't think it's going to really get a dragon shaking in its claws, you know?
Not a lot is going to get a dragon shaking in its claws.
Let me talk to my men. Let's see what we can do. We can muster as far as these chains go.
A surprise attack is going to be one of our best shots at grounding this thing.
So, march to our men. We're going to bury them in the ground.
Not bury them. That sounds so dramatic when you say it like that. I'm gonna make a tunnel. There'll be stairs. They'll be able to walk freely. They'll have air holes. It'll be just like when you move through the sewers to not be seen.
We'll talk to them. I certainly hope your magic and stone shaping is as strong as it is. At the very first moment, that dragon looks like it's going to go ahead and break free. The weapon's out.
Oh,
Do you
definitely.
understand that?
We would appreciate that, actually.
Okay.
We want it to land, then we strike. We just want it to hit the fucking ground.
Okay. And what's our bait? You say you have some gold to give?
Some gold to give.
Try for Kevdak's corpse. Oh, that's enough. Let's see what else we've got left in our coffers. He turns around and him and Mora walk away. A couple of the men join them, and they go.
I go over to Wara real quick before she walks away.
Mm-hmm.
The other side and say, "You look well. Has the seers told you if it's going to be a boy or a girl yet?"
Not yet. But if we survive this, I have a feeling I'll know. The strength and glory of this fight will confirm.
If you survive this fight, I'm pretty sure you'll bear the strongest child anyone has ever known.
The stallion that mounts the world, for sure.
There it is. There it is. It's in all our heads.
Nothing ever goes wrong when that title comes up.
Nice curse.
What could possibly go wrong? She looks over her shoulder at Xanor as he's walking away and goes, "Could be." And she just turns and starts walking with him.
So we really need to dig a trench
Yeah, I'm gonna start digging a trench.
around
Where?
the area that the treasure is
I gotta get.
going to be.
How
Okay.
far is it?
You guys go up and out, it's kind of northwest of the town. You saw it on the way in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to make out at this point because there have been large claw marks in the ground. There are broken pieces of wood. There's like a shattered cart. There's some like barrels that are partially destroyed to the side. There's a little bit of just leftover ends and pieces that fell out of whatever it picked up as it took off, as well as a smattering of copper, silver, and gold pieces that you rummaged through before when you first came into the town. But there's a definitive place that you recognize where this drop point is. It's out in the open of the field. There's no, like, there's maybe a couple of nearby rocks, like a handful of trees, but they're all very sparse and spread apart. Other than that, it's just open field, so.
How far away is the nearest tree cluster?
To that, it's about a tree cluster. I mean,
I do think it's sort of interesting with Matt being a pretty high rolling DM that there weren't any persuasion checks or any sort of checks during that conversation. And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe their arguments made a lot of sense to Matt, but I didn't hear hugely convincing arguments for why the trapping the dragon on the ground was the better of the two plans. But yeah, I don't know. So it's very interesting, and I've been kind of like thinking through like why Matt wouldn't have made a check there when that was kind of what I expected him to do, and I think it could be like my initial kind of he's probably trying to save time for the fight. I think you could be right. I think it could be a pacing sort of thing where he wants to reward or not reward necessarily, but he wants to let them do what they want to do, and they've essentially earned the herd's help as a reward. So it's something that they should relatively be able to wield. And so with like those kind of tones in place and him wanting to be able to do the fight this session, putting too many checks or too much more conversation could have been a pace killer, especially depending on how because Matt knows how Umbrasyll will react, right? Like Matt knows how Umbrasyll will react to both of these plans. And if in his brain of how Umbrasyll will react, there's not much of a difference, even if it doesn't make as much sense for the barbarians to just go along with it, it might not be worth making it make sense. Like, if the fight is going to go relatively similarly, You can reward Taliesin for his effort in building this contraption. You can let them execute on previous strategies that they've tried and they like. You know, if all of those things are factors and you want to keep the pace up, you just kind of ignore the maybe more tedious parts of it. Because in my head, not knowing how Umbrasyll will react, the Herd's plan seems like an explicitly better plan to me for like multiple reasons. But Matt knows relatively how things will go. And if he doesn't see a huge distinction between the two, it's probably better to just have Zanror agree with the party and just move on. Yeah, kind of interesting. Kind of something I'd like to ask him about someday. I mean, I won't, but if I had him on speed dial, I'd like to be able to ask him. Pure speculation, but son of a shit, dude. Okay, we're back. That was a full out drop again, like OBS needed to reconnect kind of drop. Yeah, I will say, just in terms of not having like a super frustrating and extended stream, and for like my mouth issues, I'll probably call this one a half. Just because I have not seen any texted indication that this will be resolved soon. So this sort of thing might just keep happening. So we'll probably call it at half, which is at 1:38. So I mean, still a solid amount left to go. But I don't want to keep risking this. Again, especially with the multivalent factor of my mouth. If it was just one or the other, I might, but yeah. But anyways, to keep on the conversation that we were having, yeah, it's like either let the players just make the plans or do time-consuming negotiation to fit in better in the story. Victim of the 3 hours, I guess. I think that the victim of the 3 hours is an even bigger. Basically, victim of the 3 hours is kind of an easy way to say that they have extra pressure on their pacing, right? They're like Matt's pressure on his pacing within the session is so much higher. He has such a higher degree of pressure on the pacing of the session than a traditional at-home DM that's just doing it for fun. So I think that this is definitely, the more we talk about it and the more I think about it, I think it's reasonable to assume that this is a pacing decision and probably not a bad one. Like ultimately, again, you know, he has an idea of how these plans might go in his head. So yeah, if they're not substantially different, just let the players make the plans and keep the pace up. Like you guys know I harp on Matt for pacing. That was basically every episode in the Underdark. So, you know, 3 hour format or not, if there's no substantial difference, yeah, don't do the whole extended negotiation. In my head as a viewer, I would assume that there's going to be a big difference. But there's a very big possibility that there's not going to be that substantial. So yeah, just let the players make the plans and move on. Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. One of the first times where I do think that Matt is doing something that if I were behind the screen, I would like, but not being behind the screen, it feels weird. And that's, as a viewer though, I don't even know if it would feel weird as a player. Because they clearly believe in their plan. So it probably doesn't even feel weird to them.
Most of the trees that are here are singular. There's 2 trees that are within 10 feet of each other, and that's maybe 80 feet away from it.
Okay. When you dig the trench, can I use my perception and my like ranger ability to like camouflage things and make sure that from above the ground, like from the height that the dragon will be looking at it, that it's not seeable at all. I don't want like this trap to be seen. I guess I should wait until we like find out if Percy finishes his trap and like gets it in place.
You can do that if you'd like to. Yeah, as far as the ability, the camouflage ability.
I know like hide in plain sight is for myself, but I feel like as a ranger I'd be able to like hide tracks and stuff.
I'll say we can certainly give you.
Use a little like dust of tracelessness or something.
We can make something functional a bit there. You know, illusion magic is also helpful.
Right.
If you have anything illusion based, that could even just help tidy up.
Yeah, I entirely agree, Dr. Hoovy. And my view of the two plans is that one will result in way more herd deaths. So I would be leaning into the morally gray aspect of this, of like, to me, encouraging this plan shows that Vox Machina is treating the herd more like fodder. But Matt knows his players better. He knows if that's actually what they're doing. And he knows how the plans will go better. So he knows if that's actually how the plans will bear out. So this is a big one where, based on his actions, I'm assuming that my interpretation is wrong. And that he's making the right choice here. Because it's a very, like, distinct of, like, he loves making them roll. So if he doesn't, I'm assuming that there's probably a reason for it. And based on assuming that there's a reason, I think the reason makes sense. It's a weird line of analysis of thought, you know? I have no idea if Matt and Laura had offline conversations, but I did notice that Laura offered to spend a resource to do something non-standard. Ooh. You're right. Yeah, I do. I mean, yeah, I do love that. You're right. I didn't even think about that as like a tip off, but you're right. That's fair. That's fair. Keep in mind that the herd aren't good people. I absolutely agree. That's why I'm saying I would lean, if I thought that that's what they were doing, I would lean into that aspect more and like make them confront that more. Of like, if they were going to treat them like fodder, like that's totally fine. I think that that's a interesting decision within this moral dynamic. But I want to make sure to confront them with it. But that's not really what's happening here. So then that leads me to think that that's not how Matt is interpreting their actions, which is fair. He knows what's going on much better than I do, both in terms of like knowledge of his players and knowledge of the back end. All PHB Rangers need all the help they can get. I mean, true. Very, very true.
Before, you do know that dragons are very perceptive creatures and are very, not very trusting either. They're paranoid.
Yeah.
That is part of their kind of narcissism. So anything you can use, whether it be illusion, camouflage, anything to hide any sort of possible chance of it not trusting the scenario, you're going to want to do. Otherwise, this thing might fly overhead, notice one thing, and be like, peace.
Yeah.
So, be warned. Miss Dragon Specialist.
Good. You know, I wrote this down but didn't really talk about it, of running potential plans by NPCs is I think it's a solid player behavior. There are times where I don't think it works, where I don't think it's useful. Like sometimes NPCs can be unreliable narrators. But I think that generally it is a better way of running your plan by the DM. And it allows the DM to kind of talk back to you and say things that you might have forgotten. I also think, you know, this is Matt talking directly to Laura here. He's not really, you know, it's not NPC talking to Vex. But he saved this sort of information and this sort of caution and warning about their plan and about a potential hole in the plan. He saved it. He didn't just like say it to them at a place where it didn't make sense. It was while Vex was thinking about covering these up. It was while she was thinking about camouflaging it. It actually reminds me of a critique that I gave to the first Stormlight book. in Way of Kings, which this is not a spoiler. But I basically, there was a piece of information that we as an audience did not learn until 2/3 of the way through the book, but it was pretty commonly known by the participants by the POV characters within the book, except for one, the main POV character, Kaladin. And once Kaladin learned the piece of information in a chapter, the very next chapter, one of the other POV characters who has known this information for the entire time we've been existing with them waxes philosophic about that piece of information pretty much out of nowhere. And I was like, yeah, this is a little bit weird. Like, why is the other POV character just like thinking of it out of the blue? This is what Matt is doing here is a really good like mirror to it of Matt has known that this is a potential hole within their plan the whole time. I'm sure this has been on his mind, but he held himself back from just saying it until they had a reason to think about it. So it's very reasonable for dragon expert Vex to be thinking about this potential hole when trying to camouflage the entire thing. It's a very reasonable time for this thought to potentially crop up within her head. And it's very good self-control and self-restraint on Matt's part to hold back until she is in an actual scenario to actually have this thought. Really good restraint on Matt's part. So I'm big fan of that. Mega learning along with the other players as a certified Dragonator. I know, I don't know shit about dragons. I actually looked into dragons a skosh during office hours for like a little bit of a segment of a world that I'm building. But yeah, I am learning along with the players. I love that Matt translates the dragon stereotype into narcissism. I think it makes it easier to reason about their likely behavior. Feels less bad when the dragon sees through their plans, less like it's magic. Yeah, I think that translating maybe more esoteric or alien thought processes into more human terms is very solid. While still leaving the door open of, well, this is how you interpret their actions. You know, maybe there's a chance that they subvert that in some way, but talking about how the players interpret more alien thought processes or like fey moral compasses, talking about it in human terms of like, this is how you interpret it, I think is solid to give them a grounded grasp of what's going on. And then you can still subvert it because they still know that it's an interpretation that their characters are making. But it gives them a starting point at the very least. He's also reverting her for a favorite enemy. Yeah. Like, I think it makes sense that it's her. I think it makes sense that it's in this situation. I love it. Yeah. Anyways.
That was all knowledge in your head.
That I know all of these things all of a sudden.
Did he just say dragons have really high perception, so don't fuck with anything and make it look weird?
No, he said make sure, if we're going to do it, make sure it is hidden.
Right, make it look real good. Right.
Yeah.
Can I go up to like some of the guards outside and say, "Oi, where do you keep your prisoners hostage?"
And the characters just sort of I won't say like made fun of Matt, but they kind of called out the like, oh, I suddenly have all this information. But I think they're just needling their friend about it, because I do think that ultimately that's a good way to deliver that information. I don't think that they are actually criticizing him. I think they're just poking fun at him, because like ultimately they move on so fast. You know, they make the quick little joke and then they move on because yeah, it feels reasonable for Vex to have these thoughts in this situation.
Meat shields.
I mean, there are no real guards of Western anymore. Most of the guards that defend the city,
herd guards.
but yeah, the herd guards. Yeah. They're a little sparse right now.
Let me take a quick look at my monitoring. I'm assuming that because I got the text that shit was going on, that I'm making an assumption that that's the problem. Let me check my monitoring really quick to see if there's actually potentially something else. What the fuck? Okay, maybe there is something else. I'm checking my monitoring. What the shit is this? What? Okay, something is definitely fucking with it. But I don't know. But no, that doesn't even make sense. Yeah, where are the dogs downloading things? I don't know. Oh, okay, we've Are we back? I was about to say I'll give it 2 more, but I don't even know if we'll get to 2 more. Son of... God, I don't know what could be interfering so strongly. But it's not even that strong. That's the weird thing is we're not even peaking above like 50% utilization. So I don't know why it is causing these drops. I don't know. I have a theory. Maybe it's the rest of your swords angle blast through the rest next time. Yeah, it might be. It might be. It's so weird because I know what the signal interference looks like. And it is that, but it's on such a small scale. And last time when I got it down to this small of a scale, we weren't having any issues. Like I said, I have some theories about what it is, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna probably have to talk to some people. Okay, we've had so many. I'm gonna give it 1 more. You give it 1 more. Normally it's like a 3 times the charm sort of thing, and I was about to say 2 before this most recent one. So I'm gonna give it 1 more drop, we call it. because I kind of see what's going on, but to fix it midstream would require way too much like testing and weirdness. So, one more. 1 HP in a dream. We'll see. Yahoo! I love internet. I love my internet. I love not having Ethernet through the walls. That's my favorite thing. Is that we don't have Ethernet through the walls. That's the thing that I just love so much. Minecraft hardcore, yeah, honestly. One more. Let's do it. Also, Daniel, I don't know if I got cut off in saying this, but I totally agree with your interpretation. Yeah, I think you're spot on in that. All right, let's make it happen. Let's do it.
Gathering warriors that are kind of getting their weapons ready. Some of them armoring up to just see how easy they can get it on. Some of them not even sleep in their armaments. It's not a huge thing. But as you approach and ask this question, one of them turns to you and goes,
"Oh, well, there's the Iron Stocks is where we generally keep our prisoners, and the ones who were before, and the few that we did keep, those were chained up or executed, but there were a few that were thrown in there."
Are there any still in there, or are they all clear?
Well, there's plenty of prisoners still in there. We didn't touch the prison, mostly.
All right, thank you. What was Reginald's daughter's name?
I don't know if I wrote it down. I didn't write it down.
I'd like to make my way over to the Iron Stocks.
okay. You've been here before. You know the Iron Stocks, but you weren't sure if that was being used as still a prison. And it seemed loosely, almost just like throwing a handful of people in for use later on that never quite came to fruition.
Do we know her name?
Reginald's daughter's name?
Do you remember her name?
Are you asking me?
I understand. We just wrote down Reginald's daughter.
Maybe he never told us her name.
Okay.
All right, you make your way to the Iron Stocks. And it is currently unguarded. There is nobody there. The herd has lost interest in it. The door is partially ajar, and as you walk inside, you can already smell the place just reeks of refuse and decay. It looks like everything left in the middle of a workday. There are still ledgers open in the front desk. You can see what looks to be a small group of kind of a barracks type scenario to the left of the entrance that is just completely abandoned, and looks like some cases are left open, scattering various keepsakes and bottles that are shattered on the ground. A lot of people left either to go into battle to defend against the dragon, to lose their life in it, or just to get the hell out of Dodge.
Can I walk up to the ledger and pretend to read it?
Yeah, you pick it up and leaf through for a few pages. A lot of great squiggles.
Yep.
Some pretty handwriting, you can tell.
Any squiggles that look familiar?
No.
Yep.
No, none that look, I mean, some look familiar. There's some that are more rounded.
This poor bastard right here. Yep, I remember him. Good chap. Hello? Is anyone in here?
It's just like pause. Then you hear a voice echo from the right side of the room down a hall, just the stone. You can barely make it out because the distance is acts. You're hearing the echo protrude from quite a distance. But a voice just says, "Hey! Hey! In here! Need food, please!"
Oh, shit. So I'll go in that direction. I'll open the door and try and make my way that way.
You charge down the hallway, and there are a number of cells that are immediately here. Some are open and abandoned entirely. There are a few that you look off to the side. It looks like a few individuals just passed away inside the cell. You come to a set of stairs that leads down into the next subterranean region, and you hear the voice again, much closer. Like, "Hey, hey! I hear your footsteps!" You see a hand reaching out from behind some of the bars.
Put your hand back inside.
The hand kind of retracts as you look over.
That's a good lad. What's your name? Before I approach. Still far enough away.
Orn Finch at your service. Been in here.
To be fair, of Grog's skepticism here, the last time that they encountered someone in a jail cell, it turned out to be a illusionarily disguised Ripley. So I think that a little bit of hesitance on Grog's end is pretty fair here. Is there a GM that doesn't love a note taker? Look, I love a note taker, but I will say, and Daniel's, referring to what I wrote down here, Matt definitely trains them to be a note taker. I love me a note taker, but I would never, frankly, names as players, I would expect. Oh, we're back. We're back, and I don't think that anyone noticed. Well, yeah, that's a rip. That's hooray, we're back. Yeah, we might have to deploy nuclear measures. I have some things that I am able to do that I've been avoiding because they would be really disruptive to like my real life. But internet disruptions, I don't want to be hyperbolic or dramatic and say that they've ruined critical eyes. But we would definitely, if the internet was always as solid as it was in the first 30 episodes, we'd be in the 60s by now. It's just the real talk. So yep, I'm gonna end stream, and I'm going to, oh my god, and then the fucking ads ran. Oh my god. It's all the ads are running at unpredictable times because it's not, I don't want to blame YouTube or Twitch. It's my end. It's my fault. Because the internet keeps dropping, it confuses them. So I don't know. You might see some changes on the next stream. Might not even have stream tomorrow, depending. Oh, and we're gone again. God bless America. Okay, yep. I'm gonna end there. Because I just saw it drop again, and I don't want it to like interrupt the goodbye. So gonna end. Goodbye. And I will, I don't know when I'll see you next. Hopefully tomorrow. Honestly, maybe not, depending on the decisions that are made. But I will put out an announcement about it. Thank you for your patience. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.